All right, we're back. I think we're back. I'm just gonna let it sort itself out for a second. My computer just restarted itself. I have no idea why. That was quite bizarre. Actually, quite scared me. I thought my computer was like dead for a second. Kind of shit myself. But I think we're good to go now. We should be good to go now. Resting in peace is cancelled. All right, okay, we're back in business. We're back in business. Okay, I'm very sorry about that. I don't know what caused that to happen. But hey ho, we got back pretty quick. So yeah, let's
Just like
jump in.
schizophrenia, if you are it basically
Right, so I was saying before we got rudely interrupted. Yeah, I don't agree with this guy. Institutionalizing people who admit that they have an attraction to children, I just don't think is the way to go. As much as like I understand his kind of like visceral gut reaction or whatever, like I still think that like approaching it with that kind of that level of, would you call it authoritarianism? I don't know, probably. Like I just think is it would discourage people from coming forward, and I think like it would have the opposite of the intended effect, like massively. Um, but yeah,
As a
let's keep
trans
going.
woman myself, I feel like a lot of them want to invade the LGBT.
Society's duty to protect children comes over its duty to protect people with this condition. I do think that they should be able to get help and reach out as long as they haven't offended. But otherwise, this is not something we should condone or support in our society. That's all.
Alrighty, up next we have Rose Malay.
Uh, I don't think it's a Russian flag. I think it's American flag
All right, hello, can you guys hear
or
me?
something.
Yep.
I think it just looks weird
Okay,
because
so
of the
first of
lighting
all,
in
my
his
biggest concern with
video.
these map types is that as a trans woman myself, I feel like a lot of them want to
Oh wait, no,
invade the
I don't
LGBT
know.
spaces, kind of incorporated
Maybe it
because
is
our
Russian
movement's been
flag.
going, getting acceptance, and it's like, no, you don't get to be part of our movement. Second of all, I don't think that people should be seen as like necessarily like evil just because of certain things they can't control about themselves. But at the end of the day, just because it's something that's how they.
I want to contest that right away. That they can't control it about themselves. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I think pedophilia or attraction to minors is a thing that you cultivate. It's like I think it's normal that people get intrusive thoughts, right? That they don't control. That's the part that people are talking about that they don't control, right? But what they do control is if they explore those intrusive thoughts and pursue them and cultivate them into a fetish, which is what pedophilia is to me, right? Um, and I think that that would be shared by most people. It seems to be a paraphilia, which is basically like a pathological fetish, where it's like a massive fixation. I mean, like every fetish is a fixation, but like this is one that's like you know a huge part of your like sex life or something. That is what pedophilia is, in my point of view, and I think that's what, generally speaking, most people are talking about when they talk about pedophilia. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that that is kind of what it is. Make myself louder. Is that better? Just didn't want to get too much background noise to come through. That's all. But yeah, no, I think it's yeah, it's not something that they can't control. I think that's like a really cop out kind of argument. I think anyone who has ever thoughts should be able to know the difference. It's like I could cultivate, like I like older women. You know what I mean? Like I like, and that is a fetish, like because I'm fetishizing them for being older, experienced. Kind of maybe even like a bit Freudian, a bit like a motherly figure or something. Um, there's that element to it, like so. But that is like a fetish, though. If I fixate on it and like I pursue it as like my primary source of arousal or whatever. You know what I mean? And I'm choosing to do that if I do that. It's not just like every now and again I'll pick up a MILF video. It's that like it's my primary fixated sexual fetish that just gets me off. But I'm choosing to go down that road. Okay, good. I'm glad I got the audio sorted. Okay. Well, yeah. So I want to consider this because so many things that people say that people don't pick up on, like the anti guys. They do a good job, but in the first 20 minutes, there was a couple of things that flew by that I just thought, people have really got to challenge that.
They are. I don't care. It hurts other people. It's degenerate, and it's like we should widely condemn it, and there should be punishments for it. I don't. The worrying rise of acceptance of this community is really concerning to me.
Yeah, I will say the same. I don't know if there is like, I don't know if they are getting like a big research, like I don't know if you could call it a resurgence, but a big like insurgence of support for maps or anything. But they are definitely trying to make efforts to put themselves in, aren't they? Like, let's face it, they're they are trying to inject themselves and make themselves more normalized. I don't think they're being particularly successful, but they are trying.
Alrighty, and last but not least, we have tomfoolery.
Yeah, my name's Tom. I go by Tomfoolery. I stream on YouTube and I also do some video essays. I'm in favor of like destigmatizing non-offending pedophiles, but I'm not in favor of underage relationships or underage contact with or yeah, pedophilic relationships in any way. I want to keep as much freedom as possible without doing things that are likely to lead to long-term traumatization. So, yep, that's it.
Alrighty, with all the introductions out of the way, I'll let Taj introduce the first question.
All right, guys, let me pull up the questions real quick. I am so sorry. Should have had that open, ready to go. All right. So there's a lot of controversy around even the term maps, right? So what a common thing that we hear these days is that using the term maps is harmful to the LGBTQ community because people classify maps as a sexual orientation. So the first question is, what are y'all's thoughts on calling being minorly attracted or a pedophile as a sexual orientation?
I love this first question. And I'm a little bit annoyed, actually, because I wanted to do a panel about this. And I wrote a whole thing about it in my server. And I don't know. It was always going to come up because, I can't take any kind of credit. But I get the feeling sometimes that, like, because some people have access to this who have access to these people, like people like Wick and stuff, where I do wonder, like, have they... And, like, some of these people might come into contact on, like, other servers that I'm in. I don't know that for certain or not, but like, I get the feeling that maybe some of my panel ideas might have been filtered out. I don't know. I can't say that for sure, but fuck it.
Is it fair or healthy to call it that, or should it be classified as a different way?
But yeah, I do love this first question, and nobody answers it correctly either. By the way, which was really really frustrating to me. And that is, no, it's not an orientation. It's really quick and easy to shut this one down. It's not an orientation. Sexual orientation is in regard to sex, as in like male, female, and what sex you are orientated towards. Well, pedophilia or MAPS, whatever you want to say, they are related to age. It's a fetishization of age, not a sexual orientation towards a male or a female. It's just categorically not the same thing. And them trying to blur the lines between what that is sets a really horrible precedent for like sexuality in general. Like it's really not a good thing to try and be propagating. What have we got in the chat? Remember when you watched vid about Russian skinheads? The main guy from it became famous for emulating To Catch a Predator, but much more extreme. Oh, wow. Well. But yeah, I do remember that video, yeah. Oh, that's where I remember you from. Yeah. Yeah, nice to see you back, man. Thanks for following the channel.
What's everybody's thoughts?
Well, I think it should be classified as a disorder, right? First and foremost, right? Like we can talk about sexual orientation. I'm not too sure about that, but it definitely is something we want to stigmatize. We want to stigmatize, right? Having this, we want people who have it to get help, right? It should be seen by society as an illness, right? As something that we shouldn't like demonize people who haven't offended, right? We could say, hey, man, we have sympathy for you, we're going to get you help. But this is, again, treat it what it is. Call it what it is. It's an illness. And it's not something we should.
Yeah, I'm loving Wick in this debate, by the way. I don't often see him debate. I usually see him as a host of his own panels and stuff. So it's nice to see him in a bit of a different element here. But he's like, I said it in the comments on this video as well. I said, like, throughout this, Wick is like so politely based. Like usually when people are being based, they're usually like Giga Chad about it, but he's like politely Chad based throughout this whole thing. It's really funny.
Condone.
I would like to interject here with my statement of I don't think calling minor attracted person is too big of an umbrella term because there's lots of considerations to being a minor, age, where you are, location. That's more of a legal thing, and that could mean that minor attracted person changes depending on where you are. I also think calling it pedophilia isn't fair, as pedophilia is described as being more it's prepubescent. And
See, I said this at the beginning of the video, but or maybe it was on the other stream that I said this, but I'll say it again here just for posterity's sake. But basically, for the purposes of these discussions, I think paedophilia should be the umbrella term, right? And that should be the term that says anything to do with minors, basically any sexual attraction to minors, whether that be of whatever legal age is in your country. I think that just makes the whole conversation simpler when they're trying to redefine it as like, well, technically this is hebephilia, this is this and this and this and this and this, like just based on like these different age brackets. I think it's like it's kind of disingenuous, and it feels to me like they're kind of trying to obfuscate the situation. And also, it doesn't really matter if they're all hebephiles rather than paedophiles in terms of definitionally, because if they are trying to promote attraction to minors and make it acceptable, then by proxy they will also cause paedophilia to be normalized as well anyway. So it doesn't really matter, trying to make these kind of draw these lines and these distinctions. It to me, it's kind of besides the point, and it's just kind of irrelevant.
the majority of minor attracted people, quote unquote, are not attracted to prepubescent. They're more 13, 14-year-old range, which I think is perfectly acceptable.
I want to just say something that I think needs
By the way, is that a woman or is that like a trans woman or whatever? Like, I can't tell. And none of them are like showing their faces, so I have no clue.
to be made.
But they do sound quite young, right? They all sound kind of young, and we'll talk about this a little bit later. But let's see what we hear for now.
A little bit more clear, and I don't think it's talked about enough.
Oh yeah, this guy has fucking shit connection, really bad.
Not, and this is coming from somebody in the map.
Oh, we've got someone else in the chat, Sheila O'Reilly. There is no such thing as a non-offending paedophile. Did it their a self-nominated study in a prison, or these men are not going to get any more time. I'm not sure if I'm making sense of what you're saying here. The average number of victims for these men before they were caught offending was 13 victims. They are grooming people to accept them by using the moniker non-offending. There's a I'm trying to make sense of what you're saying. Self-nominated study in a prison where these men where they weren't going to get any more time because of what their answers were. Right. But if you're doing studies on people who are in prison already convicted, then yeah, all of them are offenders, obviously. What are you talking about? Of course, that's how it's going to work. But I don't believe that. To be fair, I do think a quote unquote non-offending paedophile is a ticking time bomb. At the end of the day, everybody has a sexual libido and a sexual urge, and that is largely put into action by people in one way or another, or at least they try to. You know, it's the kind of urge that is brought up in us that is more easily triggered than maybe, say, like the urge to murder or something like you're watching a movie where people are, you know, fighting or killing and stuff. Some people might be influenced to want to do those things, but it's a very rare that would be the case. Whereas when you watch porn or sexual content, you almost always get aroused. You know what I mean? So the sexual drive is triggered in a different way and much more easy, I think. So that's why it has to be like somewhat policed in a different way and stuff as well. I can't remember why I started saying that.
Community. Not every map is a horrible person.
But yeah, I don't believe every paedophile is an offender. But I do think that, yeah, they are potentially a ticking time bomb because of the reasons I stated before about the sexuality thing. And yeah, so that's why you have to kind of approach paedophilia in a different way, or sex with minors in a different way.
And not every auntie's like, you know, not every map is a great person. Not every auntie's a horrible person. I've met some maps that are horrible people, abuse children, and I wouldn't even call them maps. That is offensive to the name. That is offensive to the term. I would call them downright manipulative and emotionally blackmailing predators. Those are the dangers to society. I've seen zoophiles who yank teeth out of dogs. It's not okay. That is what is wrong with society.
Yeah, but does he not realize that when you break down those barriers, that gives more carte blanche to those kinds of people to run rampant, you know? That's kind of the point.
I've seen some aunties that go out to their local church. They do charity. I've seen good and bad people on both sides. Neither side's blameless. And like Sanguine said, it's a bit of an umbrella term, but not just from what a minor is, but what counts as being attracted. Is it sexual? Is it not sexual? Is it, you know, it really needs to be talked about in bigger depth. I also want to cover the base question of whether or not it should be accepted as a sexuality. And personally, and this is coming from me, I don't really think it should be called a sexuality by definition.
Apologies, they're using a voice changer.
And there's a few reasons for that, but primarily because I don't think every person in LGBTQ should be grouped up with a map. And that's not saying that maps are bad. That's just saying I can understand them not wanting to be involved with that. And I feel like,
But at the end of the day, they shouldn't be involved in it because it's to do LGBT shit is to do with orientation and not fetish, and that's why. Well, at least it should be anyway. Not always.
like it might discourage some people from coming out as gay because they might be characterized as a pedophile. And again, I'm not saying it's bad, but I can understand why someone might not.
So
Okay, so
I mean,
first
it's
things
also
so
the
first
thing-
first things 1 second, please.
Good.
First things first. So the idea that we're gonna hop on here and just say like, oh, just because it's minor attracted people doesn't mean that.
Okay, Shayla's clarified what she was. I'm assuming this is a she. They did a study in a prison with men who self-nominated themselves, and their answers were not going to mean they had any more time added to their jail sentence. Right. Yeah, but they were still convicted already anyway. So, you know, of course they're all offenders. That's all I'm trying to say about that. I do think it's worrying, like, the shit that they admit to. But, yeah. My point is that they had all offended on average with 13 victims by the time they were caught. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, right, okay, yeah. Okay, I get where you're coming from now. I think, This is a tough one, isn't it? Because, like, I do believe there are pedophiles who have not offended. Like, I just feel like that must be true. But then how do you distinguish between those who are just hiding it and acting as though they are not offended? You know what I mean? So I know what you mean. It does throw up a kind of a difficult thing. I guess the only thing you can really do at this, for the purposes of these discussions, you kind of have to try and take people at face value to a degree or another. You know that that pedophiles do want to get help, and that like they would come forward if it wasn't so hostile. Blah blah blah. You have to kind of try and work with some of these ideas, but I do understand the trepidation though as well, because at the end of the day, these kinds of people are also trying to manipulate. There are bad elements on this side that are trying to get like a result that none of us really want, and so you know, you do have to be wary of that. Why is there always so many people participating in these panels? Yeah, I know what you mean. I could stand to lose a couple of people probably, but at the same time, it's nice to have different perspectives. I do think they keep it all in order as well. They don't just start shouting over each other. I think this one's quite an orderly panel generally. Even to access child sexual abuse material online, you have to submit your own material. It's a community who encourages each other to abuse. I see. Yeah, yeah. So it's like a kind of circle of blackmail then. So like, if you submit, then you can get access or whatever. Right. I see what you mean. But yeah, no, I can absolutely believe that. I can absolutely believe that. Yeah, definitely. But the thing is, though, is that like people who are having intrusive thoughts, or they're starting to think that maybe they are attracted to children or something, getting help and getting to the root of that would be a good thing for them, rather than chasing down, like becoming like those people basically who are going on the websites, who are sharing the porn, who are going on to abuse children and stuff like that, and getting into those mindsets. You know, we can nip it in the bud before that, and I guess that's the point, is that we're trying to encourage people to be mindful of themselves, and if they are noticing that maybe they have a different thing about them, that they can maybe go get that sorted. I think when people start engaging with it and it becomes like an obsession, I think at that point they're kind of too far gone. I don't know if there's any way to really bring them back after that. But yeah, let's carry on.
That they're sexually attracted. Yes, that is what it means on its face, that they are sexually attracted to
No.
minors.
No, it's
That is
not.
what it means on its face.
That's for
Then
the
explain.
definition
Then
of
explain. Then
pedophilia.
explain.
Yo, no weapons on stream. Put them.
No, it is
up or
not
you're
the
getting
definition of
kicked.
pedophilia. The definition of pedophilia is to be attracted to a minor who is prepubescent. So,
Right,
explain
right.
to me what explain to me what
Paraphilias.
minor attracted people means, if not sexually attracted.
Okay, I
Paraphilias.
have
Sirens.
Wait,
you were
wait, can we
answering.
have
Sirens
one-
goes first.
yeah. Go.
Okay, so paraphilias, as a definition in the mental health community, in the DSM, they are described as sexual attractions. Specifically, sexual attractions that have lasted longer than 6 months, but they are also described as having an arousal to those particular things. It's not just sexual attractions, and I would even go farther as,
What?
you know, having these attractions myself, as to
Arousal is
say that it's
sexual.
not just sexual.
No,
So
but
the same thing.
whoa. Arousal is sexual. It implies sexual attraction. Like,
Yeah.
I do not get aroused if it is not sexually. Like, there's no other like definition of this word, right? If I am aroused at something, it means that I am sexually attracted to it.
Okay, hold on. I'm asexual, so that's not true for everybody. It's not true for me. I can be sexually aroused. I can be sexually stimulated. I
Then-
enjoy.
Yeah, well, I think she's missing the point, is that yes, that it's possible to be sexually aroused without actually having a sexual attraction, if you're like being kind of like stimulated or like touched in a way that, you know, you don't necessarily want or whatever, but it just happens to create that biological feedback, But that is not really the point, and I think Wick says this as well, actually. But like, I think essentially the end of the day, the point is that if you are aroused by children, or like, you can't be minor attracted and not be like, what is the object of the attraction then? Why is it taboo? Like, can't you just say that kids are cute and then just move on? If you're just like attract, like, what? Why is there need to be this kind of movement for attraction unless there is this sexual element to it? It just seems like it. I don't think this girl really knows what the fuck she's really saying. She's trying to obfuscate the point by going into the weeds about asexuality and stuff like that. It's also just a moot point to make that point anyway, just because most people are not asexual. So like, even trying to bring that into the arena, for most examples of talking about people who are minor attracted, we're not going to be talking about that situation. Most minor attracted people are not attracted to kids in this like platonic, normal way that most people are. It's they're attracted to them beyond that, right? That's why it even has to be emphasized and spoken about. Is because it's beyond just a normal general interaction that you would have with a child. Like, I have children, like, I've got a young family, and my sister's just had a baby, and like, you know, I've always had little cousins running around and stuff. I've always been babysitting and whatever since since I was a teenager and stuff. So I've always been around kids like all the time, even up until now, and I hope to have kids one day. And to me, kids are like, what was I trying to say about kids there? Fuck, I shouldn't have had that spliff. That's the fucking problem. Oh god, that's so annoying. Damn it! I was gonna try and make a point about kids. God damn it! Now I can't remember where my train of thought was going. Maybe watching the video. Will bring
Sexual
it back.
activity, but I have no sexual attraction whatsoever. Those do not have to involve each other.
Hold on, what does that mean then? If you're saying that you can be aroused by something, but you don't have a sexual attraction to it, can you separate these two in
So
some way
the
where they are different?
Yeah, they bring up an example of like rape here, where like you can still get like your body will have a biological reaction to the sexual act happening to it, but mentally you are obviously against it. So you know, that creates like this weird disconnect. You know what I mean? But I just think that's not generally true for this conversation at the end of the day. Like, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's what I was going to say about the kids, is that, you know, when you hang around kids and stuff, well, I say hang around, but when you're around kids, you just realize that, like, you know, they're just doing what they do. They're usually just, like, playing games and being dumb. They're like little drunk people. And you can have, like, a pretty normal, you know, I wouldn't say conversation, because, like, obviously kids are kind of, to put it very bluntly, kids are a bit dumb, especially when they're very young, but, like, but they are very funny, and, like, they do just, like, run around in this happy state, and, you know, and you can just find that that's normal, but that's not being attracted to, like, they're trying to posit attraction as just kind of, like, having this, feeling this nice feeling towards kids or something, but that's what normal people have when you interact with kids. You just have a normal relationship. You play a game with them, or like you pick them up and spin them around or something, and like talk to them about school and if they learn fucking algebra or some shit like that. Like, you know, you just I don't know, man. It's so bizarre to me to think, like, why else would you need to be talking about minor attraction unless you're thinking about romantic or sexual attraction? Like, like bringing in all these other points about rape and whatever and asexuality, I just think it's like really stupid. It doesn't mean anything. It's not relevant to what we're talking about. Sheila, or is it Shayla or Sheila? On average, it's on average 6 months between first seeing child sexual abuse material before offending their first victim. Yeah, I can believe that. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to bat for pedophiles in any particular way at all. I am the victim of child sexual abuse myself. So I have a personal stake in these conversations. This is why I take a lot of interest in like the MAP stuff. It's because I don't like people normalizing this stuff. However, I do think that like these conversations need to be had, and they need to be had well and responsibly, and that means we have to make some clear lines. This is why I don't like people who are trying to blur the lines. The people that are trying to blur the lines are obviously the ones that are the predators. I think the other side can get overzealous in how they want to police it. So like this guy up here, you know, this like American flag, kind of looks like a groiper, probably a conservative or some shit. I don't know what he's doing. Charlie Kirk wannabe or something. I don't know. But he's like goes full authoritarian with it, and it's just like, yeah, put him in an institution and whatever. And I'm just like, mate, now you're making it more difficult as well, just from the opposite side. You know what I mean? You're trying to reinforce it even way too hard, and that's going to make it even more difficult as well. So, you know, I think there is a comfortable middle ground where we just don't tolerate it. We encourage people to come forward to, you know, psychiatric services and get help if they do think they are of that persuasion. And anyone who offends is jailed. And that's that. Like I don't really understand why it has to be any more complicated than that, really. It doesn't need to be overly authoritarian. We don't need to start blurring lines between things. It's just, yeah. Cheers, so sorry to hear you fast. Thank you, appreciate that. You know, I deal with it well enough these days. I've had like specialized counseling and all kinds and whatever. So it doesn't bother me to talk about this kind of stuff. Unless I'm talking about it incessantly, and then it does get a bit much. But doing a panel like this, watching a panel like this, it's not too bad. I can get through it. I think the thing that bothers me is that like the thing is that the ones who are anti maps in certain areas do just drop the ball where they can reinforce those clear boundaries where they can say no, pedophilia is not a sexual orientation. And that's that. Like, that is the boundary. It's not a sexual orientation. It's a fetish. It's going to be treated as such. And therefore, it brings certain implications along with that, which means that it is actually a choice as well. So we have to acknowledge that, and that's how we figure out how to actually make therapy for people and deal with intrusive thoughts. Because that's the intrusive thoughts part is the uncontrollable bit. And that's the bit that I'll stand by. They form alliances which they continue when they leave jail, says Sheila. Bell's staff found this out when working in Leeds in their police force. I used to live in Leeds. Yeah, I'm sure some of them do. You know? They feel like... And to me, people like that are too far gone. You know what I mean? Like, people who are making alliances and taking part in paedophilia rings and sharing child porn and stuff, I think they're too far gone. But I do think there is a place for people who haven't offended, haven't looked at child porn, but are aware that they have an attraction to children. I think there's a place for them to go and get help and sort themselves out. Even people who have shared child sexual abuse images can they can probably get help. Some probably not as well. I think that's a mixed bag situation. But there may be some that can be brought back from that. But I think if you've engaged in it for a long time and then you start making alliances in prison and then you come out and you're still engaging in this stuff, then to me you're too far gone. There's no coming back after that. I wouldn't be against institutionalizing people like that, to be quite frank. Like if you're like a repeat child sexual abuse, image sharer, or you've downloaded it or whatever, and say you're coming in for your second charge on that, then they go, we'll look at all your history and your pattern of usage, and even from the second charge you may be institutionalized, I guess, depending on the thing. I'd like to give it a 3-strike thing. I think just maybe because I like 3 chances. Like on your third, the third time you come in, then that's it. You're gone for life. You know what I mean? You're in the institution for life. You're a part of the research now. That's it. You've had your chances to redeem yourself. You fucked it. Individual help. They can't have groups. They can't do domestic violence perpetuators in group therapy as they learn from each other. Oh, okay. So like when people who do domestic abuse, they have to do one-on-one. Once and done for me. When it comes to actual child abuse, like if they have actually institutionalize them for life. I don't mind that. I'm happy with that. But yeah. But when it comes to sexual abuse, if you haven't actually done anything, I know it still contributes to the issue, of course. I do understand that. But I think if someone hasn't directly done that crime, there should still be a punishment, but I don't know if it should be as punitive as that. Which is why I'm in favor of like a couple of chances before lifetime. Lifetime. You know. But I still believe in like a register and all that kind of stuff, so there would still be like normal shit that we have today as well. You know, I would still believe in like, you know, if you get caught with that kind of thing, you go on a register for public, you know, the public know. You know, that's public information.
Different things, because it still sounds like you're saying the same thing.
It's not the same thing for me. It's
give me
You can say not for you, but I would like you to separate it logically in some way,
one second,
please.
1 second, everybody, 1 second.
But yeah, for pedophiles, maybe single help, like single one-on-one help. But the thing is like the resources having to be able to really do that effectively. It's obviously just not. It's not really realistic, is it?
Mr. Tomfoolery, is that you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll let you go after I say. Elder Drowsy will be here in give him a minute.
right.
That's what he said. He just started DMing me. Okay, Tomfoolery, you can go again.
I think, or who was it that I was just talking to a second ago?
I
that was me,
believe.
Siren.
Siren.
Siren's
Okay,
first.
yeah. So Siren, can you lay this out either logically or with definitions how one is different from the other?
Yeah, sure. So arousal is more of a stimulated sense. It's more of a bodily reaction to an outside stimulus.
Mhm.
That's why even in cases of like, I don't want to be too, blunt about this, but in cases of rape, your body will still be aroused to the
Gotta
sexual
go.
stimulation,
Sheila's gotta go.
whether
Thanks
you
for dropping
are
in. Appreciate
any
it, dude.
other way.
Give a like and
aroused
subscribe
to
on
it
your
or
way
not.
out, please. Thank you very
But
much.
that's
Sexual
different.
arousal is
Whether or not
It's
you
Christmas.
want the thing to
Merry
happen does not
Christmas.
mean that you aren't
And have a good New
sexually
Year as
like
well.
attracted to the thing that is happening. And
Is
so
that
that
called
like even
goes to it.
That's called sexual stimulation, right?
Right.
Yes,
There's a
that is
very big
arousal.
difference.
The
No,
most-
no.
Sexual stimulation
clinical
is
term to
arousal,
put it.
but it's not the definition of arousal.
And again,
Sexual
as you-
stimulation is a
just
much
real
broader
quick,
term than
before we
arousal.
get into the semantics here, right? Again, sirens, as you mentioned that the DSM defines it also as arousal. If you are being sexually stimulated by children, that is bad, right? We can say that is not something we want to happen. Okay, I
That
hope
wasn't-
everyone can see, right?
That wasn't necessarily the point I was trying to
doesn't
make.
make
The point I
very
was
much
trying
sense.
Yeah, the point I was trying to make was that the DSM doesn't fully encompass all aspects of what paraphilias are or can be. And I put it up moments later saying that romantic attraction needs to be included in those definitions as well.
No, even romantic attraction, we don't want that to happen to kids. If you are romantically attracted to children, you need to seek help because that's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, just
I
to answer
think-
the question that initially was asked, like, I think that you
Based.
like,
Absolutely based wick right now.
I think the word map is kind of destigmatizing these groups. So I think we should use words like pedophile, ephibophile, or whatever it is based on these groupings. Even if we want to destigmatize the non-offending people and say like you're cool just as long as you don't act on these urges, like that's fine. But using the word map, I don't believe does that. It is a sexual, or it is a sexuality, whether you want, like, it fits the definition. So what if we're being accurate? It is a sexuality, but the LGBTQ is about destigmatizing groups of people or sexualities that have been stigmatized in the past. But pedophiles and minor attracted types of people are not people that we want to destigmatize overall, because their attractions are not their attractions are things that need to be stigmatized.
What do
So
you
I
what
want
do you
to
Exeme, go first.
Iron.
It's like they keep going on about the need to stigmatize it, and I do agree with them, but I just feel like it's the wrong point to harp on it. You need to be like dismissing their, well, not dismissing, but like taking down their points piece by piece, because you start to realize that their worldview just like falls apart. I think Wick's kind of trying to do that, but this Tom is trying to reinforce like why he thinks what he thinks, if that makes sense, rather than taking down what they are saying.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. I do want to say something. And build off some of the ideas given by some of my
God, this
fellow MAP
guy's
supporters and
audio is
supporters.
awful. It's so
it-
bad.
And I have to agree with some of the things the aunties have said as well.
You're cutting
a
in
lot
and
of
out.
cases-
You're cutting in and out.
Audio's really rough. It sounds like your mic's like halfway plugged in.
Give me 1 second.
Yeah, it's a very accurate.
Sirens, go ahead while Exeme fixes that.
Excuse me.
Okay. I was gonna ask, what do you define as destigmatization?
Getting rid of negative stigma on a specific thing.
And
So
what
it
would that
doesn't
look
have to.
for?
You don't have to fully get rid of the stigma. You can like somewhat get rid of a stigma, and it would still be somewhat destigmatization. But yeah, that's any type of like getting rid of a stigma would be destigmatization.
Should we use I'll give the base definition for everyone if you can all agree to this. Shall we use the term destigmatization in the sense that a behavior or a pattern of behaviors that is in some regard deemed as socially harmful or socially wrong, becoming normalized or accepted to some extent within a society? Would that be a definition everyone's comfortable using?
Sure.
I think we should
Yeah.
just use the definition
Sure.
from Merriam-Webster is just to remove shame or disgrace. I think it's a lot easier, a lot simpler. So to destigmatize something is to remove shame or disgrace.
Whatever you want to call it, whatever word you want to use. But the
A
problem
stigma
here-
means that it's wrong socially, so, or it's against social norms.
I do
Right,
not care
audio.
what specific definition we use, but when we talk
Mm.
about things like making it okay, right, to have these urges and act on these urges, it's absolutely not. I think if we do destigmatize it or get rid of the disgrace or shame, whatever term you want to use, it is going to lead to children being harmed. And society has a duty to protect kids. One of the reasons the LGBT movement, right, is it's good to destigmatize that because they don't do harm to the community. They don't do harm to people, right? And society was repressing them unfairly. However, right? However, some things society should repress, such as pedophilia, MAPS, those types of things, because they do actually hurt people. Because children cannot consent.
Amazing. Wick
As
just
a heavy believer
absolutely
of,
destroyed them there.
maps that are
In the
non-encroaching,
most politely
I think,
Chad
I
way
think they're
possible.
like, as long as they aren't in contact with any children, they aren't touching nobody, they keep to themselves, maybe they cope with it by, forms of art.
By the way, Twitch chat,
I think
your
that's
messages do come through
Okay,
to the
we're not-
YouTube chat, so if
okay,
you're watching on
I know
Twitch,
for a
get
matter of
involved.
fact we're not getting ready to call CP
will
forms
see.
of art.
Whoa,
Please,
whoa,
please
whoa,
tell me
whoa,
that's not
whoa.
what we're saying.
Whoa, whoa,
That's not
whoa,
the term we
whoa,
use.
I did
whoa,
not say
whoa,
art. I didn't
whoa,
say art.
whoa, whoa,
I'm saying- I'm
Sprout,
asking you-
Sprout. First, let him finish so we can understand what he means before we start,
the chat isn't showing up on the
insinuating with
stream,
people.
is it?
I'm
Hold on, let
asking
me
for
sort that out.
clarification. I said, please tell me that's not what you're talking about, right? I'm asking for clarification.
Yeah, but he wasn't finished, Sprout. You kind of interrupted him in the middle.
Like I was saying, forms of art like literature, for example, who has, them reading, for example, there was an entire thing with what was this site called? For Archive of Our Own, AO3. They had the entire like movement trying to get like maps off the platform. But like, have they ever hurt anybody like that? People would complain about, you're exposing our children to content that is sensitive, The site has tags, it warns people, it tells you, people like this are on this site.
The chat isn't showing
There's
on the
no
stream
reason
for
for you
some
to be
reason,
looking
and I
for that
can't seem
stuff
to
specifically
get it to
anyway.
show.
It's pretty hard to find if you're not looking for it. So I want the stigma of like, maps all being bad, like every single one, I want it, it needs to be gone. Some people don't actually hurt anybody in any way, shape, or form, so they don't deserve that, same negative.
Do you think they need treatment? Even the ones who aren't offending, do you think they need treatment?
Treatment, like that depends. Some people
therapy,
some people are like,
medication.
they have urges that they can't control, and I'm like, you know what? Yeah, then you should seek help for yourself. I believe that.
I can't see
if
who's
you want to seek
speaking.
help for yourself,
So
there are ways to do yourself, but I'm not saying like you should go, everyone that's bad should go like fucking into an asylum or something, or like go, be locked up just because they have a certain, feeling towards something.
How do you know they're uncontrollable unless they do something? If you have these desires, you should go see a professional. The leading world professional, Dr. James Cantor, has shown that treatment is the only thing that is effective at preventing harm to children. Period. Your feelings don't really matter. We have the world leader who has said this. Like, nobody trumps this guy in research. You have to go see a therapist. Otherwise, you are doing a deplorable act, which is putting children at risk.
Because even
you
if,
don't know it's
to piggyback off of this, even if someone hasn't acted on these urges yet, the likelihood of them doing so without therapy increases exponentially. What you're doing when you refuse to seek therapy, if you have this condition, is you are increasing the chances of you giving into those urges astronomically. So while you shouldn't be depersoned or dehumanized, I disagree with that. What you should be is, it should be mandatory for you to be in therapy or have some sort of treatment plan. I'm not a doctor. I don't know what works best, but something needs to be done because you are, again, putting people at risk without getting yourself, just like if I had huge anger issues, okay, and I just could not control myself, I wanted to strike out and punch people all the time. If I do not get treatment for that, I am also a danger to the community and should suffer consequences. That's it.
Well, similarly, there's a condition called OCD bad thoughts where you think about hurting people all the time. And I know somebody who has it. You can't have knives around you, you can't have guns around you. You constantly have invasive thoughts about hurting other people. Without that being treated, the likelihood that you're going to violently harm somebody is huge. And you can't, it's not something that's super easy to talk about with other people because people think, oh my God, is this guy going to kill me? We need to treat people with enough compassion so they go get treatment, but not so much that they think that they're going to be okay if they offend.
Okay, so
this is all barred out in the science too.
So here's my question for anyone on the ProMap side. Does anyone disagree that treatment is a viable option? If so, what do you believe is an alternative to treatment? And do you believe that treatment is flawed in any way?
I believe some people do genuinely should.
Well, the treatment can only work if they can correctly identify like what it is about. And until people can recognize that it's a fetish, that, sexual attraction to children is a fetish, and they're fetishizing the age and the youthfulness and the innocence of a young child, or if in hebephilia, it's, the teenage kind of prime, just becoming an adult, kind of growing into their skin situation that they're kind of fetishizing, I guess. Again, the youth, the age. So, we need to, in order for there to be effective therapy, you have to actually be attacking exactly what it is. If we were trying to attack a quote unquote orientation, then there's no real therapy for that. If you had therapy for that, you could basically say that conversion therapy is valid, but I don't think anybody thinks that. But can you get therapy for a fetish? Absolutely, of course you can. I think people change their sexual proclivities and the things that get them off all the time. Nobody's born with particular fetishes; they develop them over time. So, nobody's born a paedophile. That's just ridiculous. How could you possibly be born a paedophile? You're born as a child amongst other children. Like, what the fuck? It just doesn't make any sense. So, until we can get that part down, there's not really many ways this conversation can go. So, unless anybody's going to bring that point up here, I expect a lot of these answers are going to be not particularly
I let
great.
Simon go first for me.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
You
I
can go.
was.
I think
Yeah, go
some
ahead.
cases treatment is kind of a necessity. In some cases, not every case. Like he said, we all have thoughts of hurting people. It's a natural human thing. You have a baby crying on a plane, you go, I just want to throw it off the plane. That's a natural human thing. Some maps are like, hey, this 17, 16-year-old, they're kind of cute. Some have that. The issue comes when they're like, I want to have sex with a 12-year-old constantly. That's when it becomes an issue. That is the territory where you need to go and seek some sort of asylum. That is where it becomes a genuine problem. There's a range that needs to be understood between it being, I don't even want to call them urges, between them being thoughts and being an obsession. I feel like, everyone's one side or the other when it's a wide range. Um, I've had people on Twitter who are map scheming go, hey, nice art, nice whatever I uploaded, nice tweet. And I've had this one guy, just as recent, 30 some years old, call me sexy, call me all this, and I'm like, and I I think it's a spectrum between over sexualization and, and just a thought. I think that it's a range that needs to be understood and needs to be acknowledged.
Sanguine, go ahead, and then Sirens, you go after.
To a degree, it sounds like he's kind of backing up my point or my idea of that it's people exploring intrusive thoughts. That's where they start crossing the boundary. And I would agree with that. I'm not sure if he's the pro map or what, but yeah, I agree with that point.
This is kind of gonna go off of the whole range thing, but I have noticed there's this assumption with people who identify as maps where they'll be treated like they're this psychopathic person who's about to touch children at any second, when the reality of it is it's not really an active thought, it's more of an allowance where, let's say you find somebody attractive and they just so happen to be a minor, that's on the same level as like being pan. You just don't mind that they're a minor. You don't think, oh, this person's a minor. You just like them for who they are, right? And then you don't go actively seeking out minors, like you're on the hunt for underage people to seduce or whatever. I wouldn't say
Then what's the
that's
point in this
something that
movement?
happens
Yeah.
as commonly as people think.
To interject just briefly, but even if you don't approach a minor and a minor approaches you and solicits you, if you accept, that's still bad, and we still want to stop that from happening.
Yeah.
I feel
Also,
like
that's
it's
not usually the
blown
case. This is
terribly out of
very, very uncommon
proportion.
what you're talking about.
I've never personally seen predation in the manners that you speak of, and I've been in a community where there have been plenty of map relationships. It is more often than not been the minor who approaches the adult.
How does that make it okay?
Even
If somebody-
even if a minor even if a minor approaches the adult still has the responsibility to deny that. In the same way, in the exact same way that if a guy has a very attractive woman come up to him in a bar and she is just plastered, you can tell that she's just drank 5 too many and she's just gone. He has the responsibility to say no because she's not in the right mind and she cannot give consent. In that exact same way, the adult still has the responsibility to say no. MAP relationships in and of themselves are predatory.
You nailed it.
But just as you said, it's like if they like 5 drinks, they're unable to. Where is the line? 17-year-old, just got emancipated. They can't consent. 16-year-old got emancipated. They can't. Where's the?
We
have
have
laws in
lines.
each state.
We can recognize real quick. We can recognize that it's a little blurry sometimes, but we have to draw hard lines in the sand. Otherwise, we got this constant shifting thing. So we have decided as a society, right, on different states have different like age ranges, but normally, at least in the United States, people consider federally 18 a good line, and you can argue and I think advocate for that to go up or down. But I think that again, just because society has a duty to protect kids, we can look at this and say, hey, we've drawn this line. If you violate this line, that's it. And maybe not unfair in some circumstances, whatever. But again, if we let this become too blurry, too wishy-washy, it leads to really bad outcomes for everyone.
Can I ask a question?
The majority
Because
of
I feel
states in the United States is actually 16. 34 out of the 50 states is 16, not 18.
I feel like we're going to get stuck on this. So if I can ask, is there anybody here who just doesn't think that there is any sort of trauma that comes with underage kids interacting with in a sexual relationship with an adult?
Sometimes there isn't, but the
not.
vast majority of the time that there is, so we have to treat every single one like it is going to be. Just because somebody can have an experience like that and be totally okay, even if they could be better off for it, since the vast majority of them are going to have something really terrible happen like within them because of it, we have to treat them all like it's going to be that. It's just like drinking and driving. You can drink and drive and get home totally safe. We would never advocate for somebody to drink and drive ever. The danger levels are too high. The cost benefit analysis, it's just not even worth considering advocating for that.
Coming in
Yeah,
hot.
are there pro maps who believe that there isn't trauma that comes with these age differences?
I
Coming in
believe
hot.
that in some cases, that's a really iffy subject. I think and I have to take a moment to agree with Elder. A lot of cases, yes. Especially
The vast majority.
A vast majority. What I'm advocating for primarily is non-sexual. I think that, but also what I'm trying to advocate for is that children need to be taught.
If it's non-sexual, what's the point? Just be normal around kids. If you're around them, you don't need to seek out having friendships with kids purposefully. Like, why would it matter to you in your life? There's literally no point in this MAP movement if it is non-sexual. If it's all like non-sexual, like the same, there's literally no point in it. Like, what are you being oppressed from? Nothing. Like, it's stupid.
In school relationships, how to notice bad ones. What I'm advocating for is that they need to be taught these life lessons earlier. They shouldn't just be thrown out 18, be a recluse, not know what a good, bad relationship looks like. 17, get emancipated, not know. That's how you get kids pregnant at 15, 14.
I don't think anyone here is against like a proper sexual education, right? Like I don't think that's something that's being contested.
Is anyone here against sex education?
I don't think I've heard
give it
that.
give it in the proper grade.
Can I have
No.
can I have
good.
okay, so
Yeah, sex education is fine. Yeah, sorry, I was eating some posh chocolate that I had for Christmas. But yeah, I think sex education is fine. You know, at the appropriate ages for different things. You know, you probably want girls to know about periods around 8, I suppose. I don't know. Just because they're going to start getting them soon. Or maybe 10. I don't know. I don't know how usual it is, because I know it's puberty, so it's around 10 or 11, I guess. I don't know. Anyway. Yeah, I think, teach them at the appropriate ages the things that they need to know, and then any other sexual education should usually come from the parents, I think. But yeah, I don't have a real problem with that.
Rose, go ahead. Rose has the controversial sex ed take. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like against it by nature, but at the same time, I think I'm very wary of it. I think obviously that's something the parents should have to choose. I feel like there are situations where it's like, I mean, I remember being like a 12-year-old thinking, like, why am I learning this now? It's kind of like a weird thing. Like, there are some situations where it's like you're shown exposure to some sexual things that's considered this awful, terrible thing. When school does it, it's like this great educational thing. I mean, like, I guess there's some use to it, and I think that's something that it's very important for kids to know about. But a lot of times it's just hard to trust, like, who's in charge of that stuff. But I think it can be good, but you just have to be very careful about it. And I think a lot of times they are, but I don't know.
So
yeah, I'm
I
kind
feel
of
like most
with
of us
her
are
on that a
going to
little bit
debate
there.
this on the trauma part, and that's
It
where
depends
most
how
of
it's
us
done,
who
really.
are anti-map are going to be coming from, is that we're mostly worried about the trauma. I haven't heard anybody, so no pro maps here believe that there is any, like, they don't believe, or they all believe that trauma comes with these age gaps, correct? Like, because
Well-
nobody
Sanguine, go
has
ahead.
jumped in on that.
Sanguine, go ahead.
I think that, basically everything can cause trauma. So it doesn't really seem fair to say that, it's an automatic liability to cause trauma with an age gap.
No, we can't do this. Everything can cause trauma.
What?
Something has a vastly higher chance of causing trauma.
If
Like,
I may,
yes,
if-
Yeah, it's like, okay, you could punch someone in the face and maybe not traumatize them. But nobody's going to sit there and say, okay, well, then it's just kind of acceptable to punch people in the face or whatever. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's a very fucking yeah. Wick's good for kind of jumping on this point because it's a very, it's a pretty bad fucking point, really. Yes, some people don't necessarily come out as traumatically scarred as others. It doesn't really mean anything. Like, people can go through a war and come out less traumatically scarred than other people. Doesn't mean that we should think that war's okay just because of those outliers or whatever. Like, it's really stupid, man. I hate it when people try and use exceptions to a rule or like a very small like subsection or something. So like, say like the percentage chance that you're going to be sexually traumatized. So being sexually traumatized may mean that you become frigid or disconnected from your own sexuality, which then means that you have like an unhealthy relationship with yourself as you grow up, or you might become hypersexual because obviously you've been activated sexually at a young age and your dopamine receptors are going off and you're building neurons in your brain and stuff, and like that then causes you to be hypersexual. That could have ramifications for your life in that you struggle to make meaningful relationships, and maybe you overvalue sex or you have an unhealthy relationship with sex in various different ways. Like, I'm just saying, like, the sexual trauma, people say trauma, but they don't actually talk about how it looks or what happens when people are sexually traumatized. I think it's important to acknowledge what kind of things it causes, because especially when people become hypersexual, the likelihood that they may sexually offend in some way does go up as well, right? So you're kind of making more sexual offenders by sexually offending as well. And that's not to say that they're not responsible for their own actions. All I mean to say is that we understand the patterns of behavior. We know what things can influence what, and just by proxy, having sex with children can kind of create more sex offenders. So like, let's just, we have to make sure that we're dealing with that correctly. And like, they are just kind of completely ignoring all this because all they want is their own sexual desire gratified, and this is why their arguments are so shit, is because it's all very self-centered and just trying to find loopholes and trying to sidestep things and trying to use extreme examples to tear down an argument, even though we all know that like that is like a rare circumstance. You know what I mean? It's like this is what people do when they don't have like real arguments, basically.
I could die. No, just real quick. Yes, walking down the street, I could get hit by a car and die. There is risk, but there's vastly more risk if I go behind the wheel drunk, right, and start driving. Like the risk increases astronomically.
By the way, anyone else in the chat, just make yourself known if you've got any thoughts on the situation.
To children, right?
We can argue.
And it's not so much just the age gap. It's the fact that they are still children and still developing and do not understand and cannot understand the full implications of what these things mean, that it's going to hurt them. It just is.
So if I may,
Yeah.
So if I may,
right? And I think that's the point of what I was trying to say before as well, is that like to try and quantify like if this is going to harm them in either way or none at all is not really your place to be a judge of that. You know what I mean? This is why we just have the blanket rule, and if you break the rule, that's that. It's just you can't be trying to make everything in life as blurry as possible and break down every single fucking boundary. You just can't. You can't do that. It's just not going to happen. Stop trying to make it happen.
On what scale? I think trauma has different levels of scales, right? When you say anything can trauma them, you would have to like I could be scared by a dog and it wouldn't be as traumatizing as someone who's suffered a sexual assault, right? I think there's different scales to what trauma will dictate. I don't think just say anything can be used as trauma. I don't think that helps the situation.
I personally don't see this specialty about sex and how it differs from any other actions where it could cause trauma, like you said, a dog attack or something. I don't see how that sort of trauma is different from sexual trauma.
Can I interject here?
Go ahead.
Because it has completely different implications, and it just causes people to react in a different way. A person getting bit by a dog, right, most of the time will probably be fine with dogs, but if they do develop a trauma around dogs, they're just not around dogs anymore. You know what I mean? If they see them out in public or they're near one or whatever, maybe they can probably handle it and deal with it. It's probably not as big of a deal as long as they're like on a leash or something, which usually they are. And but sexual trauma manifests in a completely different way. It's not just like, it's not like you just become a bit fearful or that you just feel a bit devastated or a bit depressed because this thing happened to you. It's that it can completely rewire your neurological makeup, right, as a growing child. It's why people think domestic violence in front of children is so bad, is because it starts to normalize certain things to the children in different ways, and they can react in different ways to it, right? It's like they are right to say that there is nuanced discussions to be had about different kinds of trauma and how they manifest. But trying to say that like saying that the trauma that you would experience by being bitten by a dog is the same kind of trauma you would experience from being raped or sexually molested or sexually abused as a child, I just think is ridiculous. I just don't think she has a real good idea or grasp of like what trauma actually is and how it manifests. Probably just because people throw the word trauma around as a buzzword. And, you know, people just associate trauma with just being like, oh no. That's what they think trauma is. It's like being really upset or something. But that's not actually what trauma is. Trauma is your behavior being affected by an event, like a particular kind of event, or even an ongoing occurrence that happens to you that shapes your behavior and coping mechanisms. That's what a trauma is.
Go ahead.
Okay, so this is kind of circling back to like the whole sex ed thing. when I was being taught sex ed, it was actually my dad who taught me, and I'll get into all that never. But he was in college at the time, so he had college level textbooks on like sexual reproduction and how the brain responds to sexual stimulation. There is a fundamentally different response to sexual stimulation than any other thing. It is more personal, more it I think it's more dopamine that it produces, but it's a stronger effect than anything else that you could do.
Hence why we give it special status, right? Like it is a
Yes.
unique experience, right? So yeah, that plays into our argument here that again, it is traumatic in unique ways that a dog attack would not be, for example. And again, the fact that it is a drive that people have, and there are people, pedophiles, who prey upon children, right? Who actively seek out kids to prey upon and traumatized like this for their own gratification. Again, society should stigmatize that. I don't know why this is a weird take. This is a hill I'm gonna die on. You know, I thought I just don't know. I don't understand. But go on, please.
I think for the ones that actively go out and hunt people are the dangerous to society. Yes, I agree. People, for example,
I'm trying to figure out what this guy's modus operandi is, because he's like we don't like predators and stuff, but you know, if a 16-year-old comes up to you and you're feeling kind of horny, like, yeah, you know, as long as they're pursuing you, then it's not a big deal. That's what he's like trying to say. I guess that's his point of view. Maybe that's what the map thing is. But I don't know, man. I have this really weird thing with these maps, right? That I think it's a little more complicated than it seems on the surface, because I don't think this is just about older people wanting to have sex with minors. I also think this is somewhat to do with minors wanting to have sex with adults and that being seen as less taboo. So I think, because some of these people seem really young, and I get the vibe that, like, you know, they want it to be more socially acceptable to sleep with adults, because they, you know, like a lot of young people find older people attractive and stuff like that. It was pretty common when I was 15 or whatever. I'm not saying they're 15, by the way, but I'm just saying, like, when I was 15, you know, it's pretty common to be like, oh, that girl, she's like 25. Oh my God. Oh, she's so hot. Blah, 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 blah. And, like, you know, you do find older people attractive. And obviously, if an older person did want to have sex with you who you were attracted to as a younger person, you know, you'd be all over it, because you don't care, do you? You don't know what the fuck you're doing. You don't know how this is affecting you in the long term. But I get the feeling that they are young people. I don't know. They're young people that want to have sex with adults. Like, they're coming they're like the other side. They're not the older people trying to have sex with the kids. They're the kids trying to have sex with the older people. And they're going to bat for them. I don't know, maybe this is like the first time anyone's ever said this about maps. I don't know. But I've never thought it before about maps. I never ever thought it until this panel. And the only reason I thought it is just because of how young some of these people sound. And I'm just a bit like, weird. Like, you know, where is this coming from? We got some chatters. Still puzzled if it's a Russian flag on the dude's mask. Yeah, I honestly can't tell. It looks like it might be, though, yeah. What does this man do with his fingers? Oh, the man with, like, the gorilla mask thing? Or whatever it is? I don't know, man. He's just been weird the whole time. Like, I don't think he's said anything yet. I think he's pro-map, but I don't actually know. But, like, he's just being a fucking weird guy. The guy with the beard once debated Chud logic on Break the Rules with Lev Polyakov, but he's a weird dude. He also moderated for Chud on a debate about incels and pilling is sucked ass. I kind of like Wick. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of like Wick, but maybe not everything he does is a hit. But I think Wick's all right. But yeah, did he debate Chudlug? I've been on BTR a few times actually. Maybe that's where you know me from. I can't remember. I feel like I've seen your name before, Azurio. But yeah, I don't find him to be that weird personally, and if anything, in this debate, he's been doing a really good job. So, fair play to Wick in this debate, I think.
The ones that reach out to me on Twitter and go, "Hey, you're hot, you're sexy, we should be." See, those are the kinds of people that are genuine dangers to society and need to be dealt with, not just in a psychological way like therapy or a ward, but also legally. That is not okay. But it's just the same as following a woman into an alleyway. Same thing. Or prying on a drunk woman, as what's your face made earlier. It is the same thing. And then I also get the people in my DMs that are like, "Hey, you're cool. You have nice writings, nice art. You do good things." Those are the people that should be accepted. I feel like there's again a range, but I also want to take hold for a minute. And I want to make sure we're all on the same page what we're considering. A minor is a 17-year-old still a minor, a 16-year-old, because again, as someone else said, 16 is kind.
So does he just really want to fuck 16, 17-year-olds? Is that his like whole? Is this why he's saying or everything that he's saying? Like, I don't get what the fuck is going on here. Like, I mean, even in this country, it's legal to have sex with a 16-year-old. Like, I'm a 31-year-old man. Legally speaking, I could have sex with a 16-year-old, but most people do not do that, and I wouldn't do that either, by the way. But like, most people wouldn't do that because usually people who are 16 and dating are usually dating in that age bracket. It's usually around the 18 to 16 bracket. And anything over 18, if you're like 19, 20 and you're dating a 16-year-old, people will look at you funny. Again, it won't be illegal, but people will look at you funny. Like, you will basically harm your reputation if you do that. And most men know that. I'm pretty sure most men know that. If they don't know that, then they're fucking idiots. But in the UK, that's essentially how it goes. And like I say, there's a little bit of leeway when you're up to 18. If you're an 18-year-old guy dating a 16-year-old girl, most people will probably see that as acceptable generally, but would probably try not to encourage it. They'd usually want a 16-year-old girl to be dating a 16-year-old guy, usually, or 17. But they're not going to go crazy when it's 18. But it's more when it's like 19, 20 that people start to go, okay, you're getting older now, date in your own lane. Don't be dating like people who have just come out of high school. You know what I mean? That's pretty much the situation over here.
Kind of the legal, it is the age of majority, and not just most of the United States, and granted, I don't live in the United States, but most of the world. Sweden, Norway, Britain, etc., have 16, and some countries have down to 13. So it really needs to be talked about. What are we considering a minor?
Okay, sure. I'll just give you mine. And so when I consider a minor attracted person, right, anyone who's attracted to 15, 16-year-old, even a 17-year-old, anything under 18, like I would, again, I want to be clear. I want to be clear. If you're 19 and you're attracted to a 17-year-old, that's not what we're talking about, okay? That's different. But when you're 19 and you're attracted to a 13-year-old, that's a problem.
Yeah, Wick's coming in with he's dropping some bombs. He's basically carrying this whole debate. Like I've got to give a lot of respect to Wick on this one. He's doing very measured responses as well, very clear, very concise. I do appreciate it. Azurio says, I'm probably murdering your name, by the way. I'm sorry. Yes, I do know you from BTR. You should return there too sometime. Thank you, and maybe I will. I don't know. We'll see. Also, why did you not stream for 3 to 7 months? Honestly, I've just had a tough few months. I've had to be doing a lot of different things. I've been in counselling. This is for separate stuff to YouTube and whatever. just my own private life and stuff. And yeah, I've been doing counselling. I've been trying to work on my relationship with my partner and stuff like that. And to be honest, things are getting into a better place. I felt like it's Christmas, so let's do a stream, it'll be fun. Also, it is just a hobby for me. I'm not a career streamer or anything like that, so, I don't feel an obligation to be constantly uploading. But I do like to upload, and if something catches my eye that I think is a good video, then I will put it up generally. But yeah, there's been multiple things, not only about my private life, but just the topic of politics and talking about extreme political issues and social issues and stuff like that a lot. It does just get a bit much sometimes, and to be focused on it all the time. And I'm just trying to get to a more positive headspace, generally speaking. So that is basically the reason. It's just a few different reasons why I've disappeared for a few months, but essentially I'm going to do that from time to time. If I was making a career out of it, if I was making money out of doing YouTube and stuff, I'd have to make it my job, and I would make it my job if I could do that. But because I can't do that, now and again I'm just going to take hiatuses. It's just how it is, man. I've got a normal life. I'm just a regular guy. I wish I could be the next Chud Logic, But anyway, let's carry on with this. Let's see what Wick's got to say.
Right. So again, we can say the line's wishy-washy, and I could agree with you, but we have to draw firm lines in the sand legally and societally. Again, my judgment for you, if you're attracted to a 17-year-old, is different than if you're attracted to a 13-year-old, but judgment nonetheless.
Yeah.
Hold up, Rose, before you go.
Says,
I think the PM person was trying to speak, and I don't think they've spoken at all yet. So go ahead, PM or PYM. I don't know how to say it.
I wasn't trying to speak.
Oh, okay.
Don't worry.
My bad. Then Rose, go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, I think that age gaps are more important than the age of consent, because I don't think you wake up on your 18th birthday and you suddenly become an adult. Obviously, that's pretty silly. That being said, the brain doesn't fully develop until you're 25, but the age of consent shouldn't be 25. I think as long as it's important to know, we're going to treat a 40-year-old who's attracted to an 18-year-old as a much more severe consequence than a 16 and 19. Are they both wrong? Are they both there's moral gray areas there? So I think when it's as simplified as that, I don't fully agree with that. I do agree that there should be some line, and I think 18 is a good line. But at the same time, I don't think if a 40-year-old's dating a 16-year-old, that's pretty messed up. But if the person's a lot younger or around the same age, it's there can be an age gap where it's kind of iffy, but it shouldn't be treated the same, at least legally, in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree with the.
Yeah, I generally agree with her, I suppose. Probably wasn't worded the best way, but yeah, I generally agree with her take, I think.
The Romeo and Juliet law. Such as if you're 17 and you're dating a 15-year-old, it doesn't automatically become illegal the second you turn 18. I completely agree with the Romeo and Juliet law, and I'm gonna have to throw a lot of agreement behind what Wick and Rose just stated. Is that the age gap is extremely important. We're talking about these young ages, when you're 19, 17, that kind of thing. The age gap becomes very important. But if you're 25, 26, and you're yeah, that 17-year-old, I'm gonna go try and ask her out. That's 100% wrong, and you need to seek treatment, because the feelings you have are just absolutely incorrect and can lead to serious harm to a minor.
I
Can I
think that
interject?
the law's probably
Go
updated.
ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Patrick?
Who was trying to interject?
Me.
Siren, go
Siren.
ahead. Siren, then Elder.
I do want to kind of ask, when you're out in public and you see somebody and you think, hey, they're kind of attractive, I'm going to go ask them out. Does that, you brought up a 17-year-old. If they don't know that that person is 17, there's no visual cues to tell that person that they're 17.
No, I get what you're asking. Fully
Yeah, is
developed,
that still...
some women develop early, right? Some people, I should say, because some men develop early too. I've seen 17-year-old guys who look like they're 25. Jeez. But you know what? That's a little different. When I'm talking about maps, right? When we are discussing maps, I think most people understand it. It's people who are attracted to people who are visually, obviously underage, right? They are not fully developed. They are absolutely don't look like they're 25. They look like they're 13, right? I think that is what I am discussing here.
Yeah, I would
Right,
agree
but
with that.
that's only a small portion of what the MAP umbrella term encompasses. You're talking specifically like hebephiles and pedophiles more so, but FHebephiles are
Even
Why would
let me
Betsy
take
this
this. Let me take
umbrella?
this
No, no,
one.
no, no, no,
So
no, no, no,
even
no, no,
even
no, stop,
even
stop, stop,
if
stop, stop,
okay,
stop, stop. So again, if you are if you're what you're saying here is that we are being too broad with this brush and painting everyone as maps when we should only be painting the people attracted to the 15 under or wherever you want to draw that line. Okay, maybe we can do that, right? Maybe we can do that. But the problem is when people I hear advocate for maps, right? They are making the umbrella as broad as possible so they can point to the reasonable stuff and say, look, you're attracted to a 17-year-old sometimes when you don't know they're 17-year-old to justify protections and destigmatization for the people who are attracted to the 13-year-olds. And that is a problem.
All right,
the
Sprout,
issue
then Tom.
not only
mainly
that.
have
So
with
not only that, but I'll take it kind of head on. So like if you do find yourself somehow talking to a 17-year-old who looks 25 and you have the full idea that they're 25, etc. and so on, the second they say they're 17, that should be an immediate turnoff, and you should immediately be like, yeah, nope, never mind, my bad. I thought you were much older. It should be immediately a turnoff. If it's not an immediate turnoff, then you've got some things to reflect on.
Let's fucking go.
Tom.
I think
Tom.
that the oh okay.
Sorry, Sanguine.
I don't know who the
So can
moderator
I?
is.
Oh wait, no. Sorry. Sanguine's lit up when you go ahead, Elder. I
I
apologize.
Okay, I think that the law is a pretty good metric.
I'm
None
so
of the laws are
sorry.
like batshit crazy young. Obviously, people in those states agree on that number. Otherwise, there would be people. If people thought that the law was letting people fuck kids, they'd be burning down their courthouses. Like full stop. There's no way that this wouldn't be the case. Some places it's 16, some places it's 18. I think that that's the metric that we have to go by as far as like what makes you somebody who's like criminally wrong and how you're conducting yourself. However, I think that there's people say like the age gap. I think the age gap's a good marker, but I think it's like contextually based. I think that if somebody is in a state that's like 16, but they're dating somebody who's 18 and they're like 35, there may be a very good reason why these two make sense together. There might be some situation like, oh God, actually that makes perfect sense to me. Although there might be some people that are like 22 dating 17-year-old, like you have no business being with each other. This 17, like this, or even somebody who's like 19, like a 25-year-old, like this 19-year-old, like they're very clearly like they have the mind of a fucking 12-year-old dude. Just fucking stop. I don't want to hear about the legality of it. Societally, we're gonna tell you no, this is fucked up. But like I said, the state people very clearly don't feel like people are fucking kids in these states on the whole. Like the states, like these people have spoken on what they think. And I don't think that we can be like super crazy crucifying people who are following the guidelines of their states.
Sanguine and then a tomfoolery. Sanguine.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry about. Okay. I have lost track of the conversation a little bit there. My partner's been messaging me. But Azurio says, yeah, I feel you. Counseling therapy takes a lot out of you. It can help, especially when you relay your feelings. Someone hears it, you feel you're being heard and seen, not invisible, you're not alone. Yeah, it's not even just that. It's other stuff. But like, I'm not gonna get into it here. But it has been helpful, I will say. Things have been improving, getting better for me over time, so it's all right. But yeah, but I appreciate your concern. I appreciate your sympathising with me. I do appreciate that a lot. Thank you. Also, neat background. What made you use that? I was just looking for a background. I got a big selection of pictures on my computer, and I was just looking through different pictures, and I saw that one, and I thought, you know what, that'll be the background. It was not a very well thought out or deep thought. I just thought that's a cool picture, that'll do. Nothing too special there, unfortunately. I think I'm gonna order some food in a moment as well. So You might end up hearing me munching eventually, but I'll try to keep the noise down. Okay, I'm gonna order some food while I'm doing this. So I may just be taking a little 5-minute break here just to order my food. Won't be very long. At least I'll try not to be very long. By the way, everyone in the chat, how was your Christmas? Remember to like and subscribe, by the way. Like the video, like the stream. So yeah, just let me know how you're doing with your Christmas and everything. Did anyone get anything nice? Did you get anything nice? Ooh, scheiße. Sorry, I will just be 2 seconds. My partner keeps messaging me and I wanted to stop. I feel like we finished our conversation now, but she's still like messaging me. We're just trying to sort out what we're doing for New Year's and whatnot. It's her birthday tomorrow, so we've got Christmas on the 25th, her birthday on the 30th, New Year's on obviously on the 31st, and then New Year's Day and everything, and then my birthday is on the 2nd of February. So winter is just like the worst time financially for me, and sorting events out and sorting things out and whatever. I just don't want to do it anymore, man. I'm getting too old for it now. I don't care anymore. But then I feel like I have to care. Alright, I'm just gonna grab a McDonald's. Fuck it, it's Christmas. It's Christmas! So I'm gonna get myself a McDonald's. I'm gonna have a chill, lazy day today. I've got a job interview tomorrow. So I could have a new job in the new year, which I'm really got my fingers crossed for that one. Because I really hate my old job. Or my current job, whatever you want to call it. Should I just go Big Tasty? It is Christmas after all. Maybe I should just go Big Tasty. I don't normally get the Big Tasty, but... Large meal, large fries. I'm going... large Fanta, but no ice. You don't want to get ice on a delivery because it just melts into the drink while it's on its way here, and you just get a watery drink. Not that McDonald's syrup is very good anyway, but you know what I mean. And I think I'll get some extra fries as well. I'm gonna be a fat bitch. Fries and sides. Medium fries. 169 for medium fries. That seems like a lot. Bloody inflation in it. Bloody inflation. Bloody Nora. Oh, wait, what? What? My burger didn't go on. Why is that? Son of a bitch. Come on. Big taste of bacon, large meal, large fries. Jesus Christ, do I have to do this again? Fanta orange. No ice. Jesus Christ. That's a basket. There we go. Bloody Nora. Nora is the colloquial British term for... I don't even know what. In all honesty, I actually don't know. Bloody Nora? What does it mean? Food is on. Well, it's being prepared. So, back to the chat. Sorry for taking so long. We will resume. So, Azuro says, you went to counselling for OCD and social anxiety. But you're right, family problems do suck, though. It's hard to bond with your dad as a young man. Christmas was fine. Got back from the Philippines on the 25th. Oh, you Filipino? Or were you just visiting? Sadly, I got nothing nice, just clothes, but it was good to be back from home there. Clothes are nice. I made up the clothes. I got a waterproof, windproof coat for Christmas. I was well happy with that. Oh my god. So good. I got a rice cooker last year. Fucking perfect. Oh, you're Filipino. Okay, nice one. Cool. Used to have a lot of Filipino friends when I was in high school. The girls didn't like me, though. They were very Catholic. And I fancied them, and they they didn't like that. They wanted me to be Catholic and stuff. It is 29 where I live at 5 a.m. in the morning. Jesus! McDonald's is always good for some quick grub. I go for Dr. Pepper or Fanta or Fruit Punch maybe. Yeah, we don't get Dr. Pepper over here on the in the McDonald's thing. So we don't get it's only like Coke and Fanta and shit like that. But yeah, anyway, I'll stop talking about McDonald's now. Nobody wants to hear about me going into McDonald's for a cheeky, dirty McDonald's over the Christmas period. What are you gonna do? I've had too much to drink. I'm meant to be drinking with my partner now as well. We're going to be drinking on New Year's Eve. We weren't going to drink before. But she's seeing a mate from work because he's going away to Spain the next day. And so she's seeing him in the day, so she's going to have a couple of drinks with him. So I was like, well, if you're going to have a couple of drinks with him, I want to get in on the action. I'm gonna get some drinks in as well. Let's get on it. We're going to do some karaoke, bringing the new year right, you know? Home for me was the gift. Oh, I see. That's a really nice gift as well. That's a really, really good gift. I thought we were going to be delayed for the flight. I really thought it was going to be like 26 or 27, but we made it on the 25th. Ah, I see. Thank God. They do have McDonald's and Shakey's there in Philippines. I don't know what Shakey's is, but yeah, no, I assume they must have McDonald's there as well. Yeah, yeah. I've never been to the Philippines. It does look like a beautiful country, though, and I do have to say, my heart goes out to the Filipino people because I understand that there is some pretty difficult stuff going on at the minute in the country. So I'm glad you got to see your family, and I'm glad that they're all safe and well. Anyway.
So I just had to. Sorry, I'm.
You're good. Take your time.
I'm So I think that I think I need to skip my turn real quick. I'll be right back.
Go ahead, tomfoolery.
Nothing to say. Nothing to fucking say. Because they haven't got anything to fucking say. To be fair, at this point in the conversation, I mean, I feel a bit like this girl over here. I don't know if you can see her face, but I'm feeling the same kind of emotion when it comes to this situation. Yeah, they haven't got anything to say. At this point in the debate, I feel like Wick especially has done a pretty good job of completely demolishing any point that they've got to bring. They keep kind of trying to come in with this slightly manipulative, like bringing in like a lot of this irrelevant fringe stuff. Like everybody knows it's different when a 19 and 17-year-old are dating. People aren't talking about that. People are talking about how maps are trying to normalize. Okay, so this is the thing. They're trying to say, oh, well, what about a 19-year-old and a 17-year-old? Everyone already accepts that. That's the thing. They're trying to act like it's not accepted, but it is. That kind of thing is already accepted. So that means that, like, they're not really fighting for that. They're fighting for something else. They're just using that as, like, a little bit of a smokescreen to come through, you know? It's really stupid.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the people on my side are drawing hard lines a little bit too liberally. It is normal for adults to be attracted to anybody who is post-pubescent. We are attracted to post-pubescent features regardless of the age. You don't all of a sudden stop being attracted to somebody just because you find out some number that's related to them. But
Tom's hitting on like a controversial yet true point here, is that like it is the introduction of puberty that gives off the biological reaction. So when people become fertile, essentially, that's the biological signal sent to other people that they're ready, basically, for lack of a better term of putting it. But realistically, the reason why we put age restrictions on these things is because regardless of if their body is ready for sexual intercourse, doesn't necessarily mean that mentally they are ready for that. And also because when people are growing up, they are learning, their neurons are still forming together. If you introduce a hypersexual element into their life, then you are creating a hypersexual person. I don't want to have to keep repeating this point, but like that is kind of the issue. I do think like there is, like, people do try to pretend like, oh, you could never feel some kind of attraction or whatever. But the thing is that if you ever get that feeling where like you see a 15-year-old and go, oh, they're kind of hot, you just think that thing for 2 seconds and then you move on. You don't dwell on it. You don't pursue it. The problem with maps and pedophiles and stuff like that is that they have that thought and then they keep exploring it. They keep going down that path. They go, oh my god, she's so hot. I keep thinking about it. Da, 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 da. Maybe I find 15-year-old hot. That's another 15-year-old. She's really hot as well. Oh my god. Da, 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 da. And they keep going and going and going and going and going. They don't stop. They don't just swipe it by and just let the intrusive thought pass through, as most people do. Like usually when you have an intrusive thought, you just kind of let it pass through and it's there for a second and then it's gone. The reason why people become pathological is because they take those intrusive thoughts and they apply more to it. They keep thinking about it. They think there's something wrong with them. They obsess over it, blah blah blah, and then one thing leads to another. They start becoming more compulsive, more pathological as they go along, and that's just how it is. But yeah, I do think it doesn't help the conversation. I think Mr. Girl was good for this in that he acknowledged that that kind of like puberty is a tricky place. Like hebephiles, I suppose, are in some sense slightly more understandable because we can understand why people have like this biological reaction to puberty. But if you're still pursuing it and you're actively engaged in pursuing that fetish, that is a problem still, regardless, right? And that's the difference between people who have those intrusive thoughts and let it pass through, and the people who actually are hebophiles, so the people that pursue it, right?
That doesn't mean that it is okay or socially acceptable to have a relationship with them. So being attracted to somebody who's 16 who looks like they're 25, you don't find out that they're 16 and lose all attraction to them or something like that, but you shouldn't want to pursue a relationship with them. So that's very different. Like, as to whether or not you would be attracted to them, that's normal. It's normal to be attracted to post-pubescent features. It is not normal to want to pursue a relationship with that person. These are insanely hard conversations, especially to have on like a 10-person panel where there's so much information that you would need and so much context to like actually analyze these things. And it's most of the time it's going to be on a case-by-case basis when we're looking at different age gaps.
Tim, don't put that up anymore.
But yeah, when we're looking at different age gaps, it's going to be like individually context dependent. But I think most of us are more so against the like minor attracted persons. When we're talking about that, we are talking about most of us are going to have bigger issues with prepubescent relationships. So it's not even just the attraction by itself that is wrong or immoral. A lot of these people can't help that. There's nothing they can do about it, but it is acting on those urges that we're going to have issues with, not just the attraction in and
not
of
just
itself.
that. To
Tom,
push back just real quick. Oh, go
well,
ahead, Sprout.
okay.
Push back, and I'll push back after.
Okay. So Tom, like, I'm gonna have to push back on that. The idea that if you're like, you can be initially attracted to someone, you can initially have that human reaction of I like the way she looks, and et cetera and so on, to post-pubescent features, right? But the moment they say that they're underage, the moment they give you their mental capacity, right? Because being in a relationship, having attraction like that is not just about bodily features. It's also about mental capacity, right? So the moment they tell you that the mental capacity is underneath the age of 18 and you're like 26, 29, 25, 28, whatever, then that should be an immediate turnoff. That the mental capacity is not up to par, and therefore should be an immediate turnoff to, okay, this person's a minor and I'm not doing this. No.
I mean, it can be, but we are talking about different people's like, you're all of a sudden talking about different people's attraction rates based on different types of characteristics and personality traits. Like, that all differs and varies on all sorts of different things. Like, you can't just say maturity level here for this age. That's not how it works. They can have different aspects on different personality traits. It's all over the place. You don't all of a sudden become unattracted to somebody based on a number, is what I'm saying. You don't hear that this is their age and say they are no longer attractive, or these post-pubescent features are no longer attractive to me. But you can say, I should not want to pursue a relationship with this person, and you shouldn't.
Tom, real quick.
Right.
So have you ever been attracted to someone, they turned out to be an absolute bitch, and you lost all attraction?
I don't think so.
Oh.
I think a better example might.
Physically, no. Like, physically, I would probably still have sex with the person. In terms of, like, just would I have sex with this attractive body? You know what I mean? Like, but the turn off is like not that like I don't find them sexually attractive anymore. It's that if they're a massive bitch or whatever, the turn off is the personality. Their physical attractiveness will still remain, but I don't really want to be with them if they're like that. You know what I mean? So its point is a bit shit, really.
Just because they've got a nice figure, right? But they're an absolute bitch, and you figure that out.
Yeah,
Does that change? Does that change whether you're attracted to them or not?
Again, you are oversimplifying this so much. Attracted to them, what does that mean? Am I attracted to their personality? No, probably not. Am I attracted to their body? Yeah, I'm not gonna. That's not gonna change.
The individual.
I don't know what that means. I think you're oversimplifying.
You don't know what individual means?
I don't think I'm just attracted
Tom,
to an individual. I don't think that exists.
One second, fellas. Just to clarify things, make things move a little bit faster. I think a better example that Spartacus had for Tom was like, have you ever been attracted to somebody that like was really hot, and you found out she was like super drunk and she couldn't consent. Hell no, she could not. Is that like a more fair thing, Spartacus?
That doesn't make them less hot. That just makes them less
Yeah,
able to consent, so you
so
don't do
like
it.
It makes
what
it
I'm
makes
saying,
it like you don't act on it though. That's what I'm saying.
yes. What I'm stating is someone can be very hot, someone can be very visually appearing, very visually attractive. But the second that, like, such as if they're just really stupidly drunk and they're just plastered, that should be a turnoff. You should not want to
This
have
called
sex with
attraction.
somebody. Wait, one
Okay,
second. You should not want to have sex with somebody who is plastered. That should not be a want, right? Same idea with a minor, right? If when they tell you they're underage, that should be an immediate turnoff as to, no, I no longer want to do this because you're underage. And that
Yeah, you can make the conscious
does kill the
decision to-
attraction. It doesn't kill
it
the
probably
idea
does
that, like,
affect
that you're attracted to, like, this
attraction
figure
overall.
or like the
But, like,
parts of
he's
the
trying to
body,
make a
right?
delineation
But
between, like,
what it
physical
should do is
attraction and
not that
all
individual.
attraction as a
That
whole.
individual it's out
It's not
out
really
of reach.
working, I
I'm
don't
not touching it. I don't want to touch it.
This
I'm
is also like just a bad point to keep going on about as well. Like, I just think we need to be doing more. Well, I say we, but they need to be attacking. They need to be putting the maps points of view on blast. So realistically, what they need to start doing is asking exactly what the worldview of the maps is. Like, what is it that they're actually fighting for and against? At the minute, we already know that, like, a lot of what they're saying is kind of bullshit. They're talking about sweetheart laws and all that kind of shit and being like, is it acceptable for a 19, 17-year-old? Well, like, what will we do there? I mean, they're nearly of age, like, blah, 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 blah. But it's like, well, we already know that that's fully accepted as it is already anyway. So we don't need even to have that discussion. So where are maps even coming from? Because if they can't be fighting for that is already accepted, you know? What are they fighting for then? You know? Like, where is this going? People need to start drilling down into, like, where is this map movement? Where is this point of view? Where is it actually leading to? Where is it going? And they're not really doing that very well. They're kind of getting stuck in the weeds. And this is what the maps have done. They've introduced a lot of talking points and arguments where they've tried to deflect and bring in this irrelevant information about asexuality or the difference between, like, being sexually stimulated and aroused and all this kind of stuff. And, like, they try and do all this on purpose because they're trying to obfuscate away. And it's starting to work. These two are getting in the weeds about some bullshit that really just doesn't matter. It's not relevant to this situation. It's just really not. I think we've had another chat in the chat there. Shakey's has chicken and ribs or steak in Philippines or where I live. There's people that are poor or like some dying by car crash and earthquake stuff. Where I went, we experienced 5.3 mag earthquake. Oh shit, that's horrible. I thought maybe I'm thinking of a different country, but I thought there was civil unrest going on in the Philippines as well, but I could be mistaking that for a different country. Anyway, I feel like they're going off topic and off track from the previous question, but yeah, maps are a big thing and probably gone off the rails at this point. I mean, I don't know how big they are exactly. I get the feeling that they're like a fringe movement, but I do think that they are trying their hardest to gain more popularity, and the way that they are going about it is having a little bit of success, and if they keep going, potentially they could, I don't know, maybe they could normalize it in society if they took it far enough. I just think that, like, hopefully, I would imagine most people are not going to stand for that and would probably clap back. I think the thing is we need to get people who are better at drilling down on these kinds of points of view and calling it out for what it is. I think that's my main problem. And I wish I was on the panel like this. I wish I could have been on a panel like this because I want to be able to, like, pin them on, like, what it is that they're really fighting for. You know what I mean? Everyone else is kind of getting stuck in the weeds and it's getting a little bit...
I'm backing off. I'm going to find somebody else.
Yeah,
Sprout,
it's like I
is
said, you stop
attraction,
being
do you mean-
attracted to the personality,
Okay,
but
hold
you're
up,
still
hold up, hold up,
attracted
hold
to
up.
the body.
Let's get back on track. Sanguine, go ahead.
Well, look at that. We just literally spoke about them going off track, and they're talking about going back on track. So there we go. We weren't wrong,
and then
were
we're
we?
going to, after this, move on to the subject, a different subject, sort of, segueing into our next point.
Oh, by the way, I don't know. There was a Russian guy in here earlier. I think he was Russian, or maybe he was Ukraine. But he was talking about how that guy has a Russian flag on his mask. And if you're still in here, let me know. I don't know if I can see who's in the chat, but yeah, basically, it just occurred to me. I think he is wearing a Russian flag, and the reason he's wearing a Russian flag is because he is anti-American imperialism as an anarchist. That's what I'm thinking. Because like some people have kind of sided up with Russia as a means to be like against America. You know what I mean? I don't know if that is what it is, but it just occurred to me that that might be the reason. You know, that might be what we're seeing here. But I honestly couldn't say that for sure. It could also just be a meme, I don't know. Because it seems like it's also partly an American flag. It's like half and half. I don't know. It's a bit weird.
I just wanted to say something on the topic of like losing your attraction because somebody turns out to be some sort of age.
Also, my food is
So
on
let's
the
say
way.
the reverse scenario.
I will let the video
Let's say you're
play. Well, I
13,
will
right?
chime in,
And
but
you're attracted to
I'll turn my
13-year-olds,
microphone
right?
down while I'm eating,
And
just so I'm not
then
chomping
you
into
keep
the
that attraction to
microphone.
13-year-olds. That's fine, whatever. But
pretty
then you start
grim.
to grow up. You didn't choose to grow up, you know, but you keep that attraction. And then suddenly it's a problem. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
It could not make sense to you. That's fine. What you just stated is the idea that someone it was attracted to 13-year-olds at one point and then kept that attraction throughout the rest of their life. Which means that I would consider that a mental disorder, and they need to get seen by a psychologist to try and deal with those issues because
Well,
it's something because it
when I was a
definitely
kid,
one
I liked
second
trains.
please. It definitely is something that would be considered a mental disorder, and it needs to be seen by a psychologist. That way, the psychologist can help you move forward and not be able to, or not have the want or the desire to possibly be a harm to a minor.
So I want to just put a cap on this before we move on to the next subject, just as concise as I possibly can. The problem with being attracted or wanting to pursue relationships with minors is because they cannot consent. That is the heart of the issue. So it doesn't matter at the end of the day whether you find them physically beautiful or not. The fact that they cannot consent means that you cannot or should not pursue any form of sexual or romantic relationship with them.
I'm just gonna go grab my food. I'll be back in 2
If they
seconds.
pursue you, you should say no. That is the heart of the issue.
Sanguine, go ahead, and then we're changing topics.
On that, on that topic, I don't see where you draw the line of consent. I think 13 is a perfectly reasonable age for them to be able to consent. I mean, at 13, you can have a Twitter, you can have a Discord, you could interact with so many people, and you can do all of these things.
That's not having sex. That's not having sex.
Okay, I have a palate cleanser for this. This might be something that poisons the
wait,
entire.
Wait, hold up. Sanguine, go ahead with your point, and I'll let everyone respond.
I don't see how. To bring up an earlier point of, you know, I wouldn't drive while drunk, it's a higher risk of trauma type thing. Using Discord is a pretty high risk of trauma in general, and yet 13-year-olds are allowed to do that. I feel like, you know, there's a lot of dangerous things that you could get into on Discord, and that's not overtly sexual, that's just in general. You can get into a random gore server, and, you know, these saying, oh, they're 18 is ridiculous. It's not a deterrent. Minors will lie if you tell them no.
Wait, just because somebody's going to break the rules doesn't mean you shouldn't have rules.
I have a quick question for everybody in chat. This could be a palate cleanser or something that just poisons the entire rest of the conversation. Hopefully, it's not the latter. What is consent to you? What does consent mean to you?
Consent means having the ability to have a sane, matured mind and deciding that you want to do something in that mind. Because when you don't have for example, if you have an insane mind, right? So you're not sane at the moment. You don't have the ability to consent, such as you're plastered. I think everyone on this panel has done stupid stuff when they're drunk as fuck and they're like, I really shouldn't have fucking done that shit. And the same thing applies when you're kids, right? When you're a kid and you look back at what you did as a kid, you're like, fuck me, I really fucking did that. And so like it's the same applies both ways. It's the ability to have a sane and matured mind, and in that mindset being able to say, yes, I want to do this.
Sanguine, what's your definition of consent?
Well, I feel like saying consent is I prefer to use a very literal definition
Yeah, I'm
of
just going to
just
chow
giving an
down for a second. I'll
affirmation.
try to be fast.
And I feel like
I'll
the
chime in if I
ability
feel like
to
I need to
give
at
this
some point.
affirmation shouldn't be questioned as much as it is, especially by Sprouticus, I think. Because it seems to me that people are treating consent like it's some magic word that you have to spend years trying to learn how to say it. But to me, it's just saying yes or agreeing or doing whatever to affirm that you are okay with something.
Can I respond to this?
Go ahead, Elder. Go ahead. Go ahead, Elder, and then
All right.
Wick.
Anybody who has younger family members or have had babysat before knows how easy it is to get your dumb fucking little cousins or siblings to believe the dumbest shit to fuck with them. A 13-year-old will believe anything if you say it in a persuasive way, especially if you're somebody that they like. I have 2 cousins that I've babysat their entire life. I'm their favorite person in the entire world. If I told them anything and just like was excited and confident about it, they're believing that shit like that. Okay, there's something that comes with being old enough to understand how things work, to have interacted with people at an individual level without people looking over your shoulder and seeing how people act and understanding like how people lie and why people lie. These are the kinds of things that are super important when we're talking about being informed. The thing that's missing from this consent conversation that's happened so far is informed consent. You have to know what the fuck is going on. If you don't know what's going on when you're interacting with people and be able to assess whether somebody's genuine or not and just understand like the reality of the things that they're talking about, you can't give consent. Consent means you know what the fuck is up, and then you can make a decision based on what they're saying, how you feel, and what it means for you then and in the future.
Okay,
And without that,
okay, Wick,
you can't give consent, really.
Wick, Siren, Sappho, and then tomfoolery. Wick, go ahead.
Yeah, one of the reasons that we don't allow kids to consent is not only for sexual reasons, but also, right, we do not allow children to sign contracts or enter into certain agreements and things like that because we recognize that they do not have the ability or capacity to understand, that's the key word here, understand what it is they are saying yes to. It's not just the ability to say yes. That is such a low level that's such a silly take, right? It's not just saying yes. It's the ability to properly understand and comprehend what it is exactly you are agreeing or consenting to. That is key to consent. It is key to consent. And unless you can do that, unless you have that ability, right, then what you are doing is not giving a consent. You have not properly consented. That is why when someone lies or tricks to you in a contract or things like that, we generally, right, consider that contract coercive, null and void in some cases, right? I'm not a legal expert, but we would morally cast aspersions on the person who tricked, lied, or deceived someone, or made it, or obfuscated things in such a way that they couldn't actually understand what they were actually signing, right? Again, consent requires understanding, and kids do not have the capacity to understand yet.
True.
Sappho, go ahead, and then Siren, and then Tom.
Well, in that case, I believe that we need to stop saying, can kids consent? We should rather be saying, do they understand what they're consenting to? Because what you're talking about is informed consent, as mentioned previously. I think just saying consent is just saying yes, because you can consent to an agreement, and agreement is consent. You can just say yes to it. But if you don't understand what you're saying yes to, it doesn't really mean much, does it? So what you're
Okay, so
talking
here you
about
go.
is informed
Informed
consent,
consent,
which is
and
a
it needs
different
it's
thing.
in order for consent to be valid consent, right? It needs to have 3 things in total, which I think I tried to go over. I guess I didn't include the specific word, but you need to be informed, right? You need to have sane mind, and you need to have a matured mind. Because to be truly informed, your mind needs to be sane and matured. Otherwise, you cannot be truly informed. You're going to miss out on things. You're going to not understand certain aspects of things, and there's going to be a lot of difficulties there. So to be truly informed, you need to have a sane, matured mind. So there's 3 aspects: sane, matured, informed. If you are all 3, you have the ability to
Well,
consent. If you're missing one, you don't.
Hey,
maturity is something that is could be measured differently between people, and people mature at different rates. So, that's something to bring up that makes it a lot more case by case, with informed consent, because it's like
Yes, I think if
emancipation.
Yes, I think if someone is I think if someone is mentally disabled enough to where they don't have a matured mind, they don't have the ability to consent. I think that if someone decides to have sexual relations with someone who is mentally disabled enough to not have a matured mind, I believe that they have then therefore raped that person because they don't have the matured mind to give consent.
Well,
Well, that
at least
seems a
sexually
little
assaulted.
Can I speak on
belittling.
maturity? Because from where I'm from,
Go ahead, and then Siren goes next. No interrupting. Boredom.
okay.
Tell Siren speak after.
See, where I'm from, like originally, maturity is like a very confusing topic because most of the children there mature fast. I'm from Africa. Like people get married at 12. We live like that, right? So why is maturity locked behind an age? I don't understand that personally. It's like
Why are they bringing maturity with an age? Because there is a biological element to maturity. I do understand what he's saying. Children can be mature for their age or whatever, and in extreme circumstances or cultures that can be changed, but that's not like the optimal way for societies to run. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of rampant abuse that goes on in these communities. So for him to be like trying to bring this out as like some kind of valid point, it's like you're kind of actually undermining your own point, mate. Like I don't know if you really get it. Like wherever you're from in Africa, yeah, I bet it's not a very good place for children. Like, you know what I mean? Like fucking hell. Yeah, it'd be cool to see you debate with them. But this guy on the third, sorry, Azuro is still in the chat. This guy in the third most top corner. Black Yamamoto, or the guy, I don't know, because it seems like they've switched places, so I'm not sure who you might be speaking about. Do a gotcha moment like when he was exposing, flipping them off. You mean that guy with the like gorilla mask thing? I don't know what his deal is. The guy in the gorilla mask. He just seems to be there for the sake of it. I can't really tell what he's doing. The guy with the hood seems like a Jordan Peterson type. Guy with a hood? It's a guy with a hood. You mean the hat? I'm assuming you mean hat, because English probably isn't your first language. No, he might be a little bit of a Peterson type. I'm not too sure. I know that a lot of people around here will be touched by oh, the one with the American flag. Oh, I don't know if he was trying to do a little bit of a gotcha, I guess, but he was kind of failing a bit, I think. He's all right. His heart's in the right place, but I just don't think he's very good at arguing this particular topic. He's not doing a bad job, exactly. It's just that his rhetoric isn't particularly inspired. It just feels a bit, kind of like the standard kind of conservative thing to say, which is fair enough. It's a point of view, but it's just I just feel like I've heard everything he has to say before. You know what I mean? It's not fresh. It's nothing fresh. Kind of stale, actually. Kind of stale. Looking kind of stale.
I feel like anybody matures, like they said, it's a different rate for everybody. It can be anytime, you know. It's not a thing that just happens as you grow older. You just start learning more. Yeah, that's true for some people, but most people.
No. Maturity is a multi-factor thing. Kids can be mature, sure. But they are going to be limited in that maturity. You know, the maturity of a 30-year-old is not the maturity of a 12-year-old, no matter how hard their life is, okay? No matter what they've gone through or whatever, it's not the same level of understanding of the world. You know, it just isn't. I don't know why this has to be explained. It feels like this is such an obvious thing. I think to anyone that's ever been around children in any particular way should know this.
Believe in, but not everybody is exactly the same in that sense, you know.
Yes, but we have to have societal standards. We cannot take the outliers, the exceptions to the rule, and build our legal system or our societal standards around that.
All right.
Like no 12-year-old, no 12-year-old.
I'm sorry.
Is
I'm sorry. I gotta cut you off, but Sirens and Tom have been waiting a while.
fine.
I'm sorry.
So like what Fordham was saying, James, people do mature differently, and there are different levels of maturity. So I think it should be absolutely on a case-by-case basis on whether or not someone is mature enough to consent. But at the same time, whether they're mature enough to consent or not, simple fact of the matter, if there's a massive age gap or if there's obvious manipulation, then nothing should go on.
All right, Tom, go ahead, and then Wick, you have the floor after Tom.
Yeah, so generally, like, consent just means to, like, agree to a contract. Normally, when we're talking about consent in the terms of, like, sexuality, we're talking about your ability to engage in that contract in an informed way. It's mostly just conceptual. It's something that we made up. It's for society to exist in the most efficient way possible. We want people to have things like, you know, saying yes to having sex. Animals don't need consent, so they don't have societies, so it's not necessary for them. But for us, we have societies, and so there's a bunch of other things that we add in, and we want, like, you know, kids to be able to go through school, get their educations, have lots of experiences, and then therefore we hope by the time that they're around the age of majority that they will have had enough experiences, even though their brains aren't fully developed. Our hope is that they'll have enough experiences to where they are capable of giving informed consent.
Okay, Wick, go ahead. And then
The moment's
we're moving
passed,
to
brother.
the
The
next.
moment's passed, but I will be brief as possible. No 12-year-old has the same lived maturity experience as a normal, just a non R-worded 25-year-old. That's it.
I mean, I would like to argue that because my own parents, my mom was about like 14 when she got married to my dad, who was in his 20s, and they had a consensual relationship. You know, they were in Africa, so that was like completely normal.
She could not consent. If she was 14, she couldn't consent.
It was consensual.
It was in a completely different country.
It is in a
It
completely
doesn't matter what country it's in. 14-year-olds can't consent.
It does.
It really does.
No, it does not. It
There's a
absolutely does
level
not.
of- there's a
14-year-olds,
level
no
of-
matter where you live, no matter how you're
Also
raised, no
based
matter
on
what
race.
culture you were from, 14-year-olds cannot consent.
In
That's it.
America.
In
No,
America.
anywhere.
Well, hang on. There might be a
legally,
conversation to be
yes.
had there.
If we are talking about legality, there are other places where they can.
Where's
Are people
proof for
are
that?
people
He's
who
not
want to be
talking
married at
about
14
legally,
and
but it
expected to
should be.
consent? Are they like is a big part of your life up until that point, having everything understood to you, like having this structure
Yes.
of like what's going to happen? Is this like a big part of
This
like
is a
your
big part of
life?
your life. Yeah, I believe that everyone should be educated that way. You know, you should be like, oh yeah,
I'd have to think
marriage is
about
gonna be
it.
in your life. That's how I was raised. I was shit. If I remember, I was supposed to be like married by 11, or like not married but dating at 11. Like, you know, people older than me, my age, you know, type of shit. Of course I didn't because I moved out before that. But you know, it's like heavily taught to you. You know, you're basically raised as an adult from the second you're born. You're treated like you're gonna be a functioning member of society from frame zero, you know.
Yeah, that's called
And
grooming.
that's
Does he
if
think
that's
this
what
is
you like
like
to
a
call it.
normal,
I don't know.
healthy way
Culture
to
grooming,
live?
whatever you want to believe, you know.
Like, do you think that culture is going to be good or bad?
If
Like,
you
Here
were
we
if you
really
were
need to
raising
have.
just real quick, if we
You're
were
not we're not
raising
raised
kids
to be married, but you know you're
to
raised
get married at 11 or 14 years old, you
we're
are
raised with the
grooming them.
knowledge of how marriage works, how everything's gonna work, how your
Do
life
you
is gonna
think
be, you know, working,
so?
having a
James,
family.
James, do you think that culture and grooming are mutually exclusive?
Yeah.
So you
I mean,
think that
I'm sure
you
there's
think that a
Wrong.
culture cannot groom? A
I'm sure
culture cannot
I'm
groom.
sure it is possible, but I would say they're exclusive. I'm not saying that, like, you know, yeah, I think they're exclusive. They do not come together always.
So
I'm sure it's possible. It's a possibility, of course. I'm
I
not gonna
said
I
say
understand what
mutually
he means. He thinks it
exclusive,
could be
which means
normalized. It
that
doesn't make it
there's a
right.
there's a
Like,
strong
slavery was
separation.
normalized.
So you
Right, okay, let me pause. Slavery was normalized, okay? It was everywhere at once. So I understand when I look at history, I can understand why people had to have the discussion about slavery, about where they were justifying it, where it was all coming from, blah, blah, blah. And it was all normalized to them. But at the end, and so I understand why people talked and looked at things a certain way as they did back then. That doesn't make it right. It's just saying that, like, oh, in this country, kids get married at 13 and everybody's cool with it. It's not like the dunk that you think it is. It's like, wow, that's actually a fucked up country. Like, you know what I mean? God, excuse me. I like how the guy with the US flag is stroking his beard like he's waiting impatiently to talk or say something that he thinks is based. Yeah, he's a bit cringe. Like I say, his heart's in the right place, but he is a bit cringe. He was a young guy. What is he? This guy, he looks like 20 years old, something like that. Anyway, what were they saying before? Sorry, I'm still eating fries. Yeah, this guy trying to say that, like, oh, because this culture is normalized pedophilia and it's fine, then that is like somehow like, oh yeah, this is what we should try. Well, people do that, so who gives a shit? Why can't we do this? It's a really, really stupid way of looking at the world. You can see Wick already in that on the right. He's getting upset. I've been getting pretty upset too, I have to say.
what you're stating to me is that a culture is incapable of grooming.
This is a shit line of questioning. It's not about whether the culture's grooming or not, right? It's a really weird line of critique. Don't say that, oh, it's grooming, the culture is grooming. The culture is paedophilia. Paedophilia has been normed, right? It's been created, it's been normalized within that culture. And I would expect the child abuse rates to be through the fucking roof. And if he thinks that's a good thing, then he's a fucking idiot.
I feel like saying this is grooming is on the level of saying
Penguin, go ahead.
Or the people in the
have to wear
early United
clothes
States, like
because
100 years
society
ago, were they all
tells you
grooming each
to.
other?
Yeah, like
When people died
It's
at like 20
it's
on a normal day? Oh,
we
Wicked
are
muted.
grooming
If they
if
didn't,
you if
they
society
did
is
not die at
telling
20
you
in a
to wear
normal day.
pants is what
I
you're
think we
saying,
all need to
basically.
pause and have a bit of cultural understanding and respect of other cultures because that's what this boils down.
Oh my god. If someone's of a culture is raping children, it's not a fucking culture that needs respecting, okay? You don't have to respect all cultures. I hate this line of thought. This is a horrible way to think. Horrible. And if anything, if she even believed that, if she even believed that we have to respect other cultures and stuff like that, why can she not respect that in our culture we don't fuck children, right? It's such a bullshit like thing to throw in there. Very bullshit.
Down to.
Oh, I feel like those who talk about slavery and stuff like that, they're kind of being woke with it or like virtue signaling. And that can get really annoying at times. It's like, hey, remember slavery? Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I brought it up for a reason though, because it was like it was like normalized throughout the whole world in society. Just as sex is normalized in society, if you know what I mean, relationships between people. So that's just why, people have to talk about like what is right or wrong with sex and stuff like that. And if they're talking about a nation where sex with children is normalized and it's fine, that doesn't make it right or okay. That was kind of the point I was making. I was making that point with slavery to say, it's not right. Slavery was normalized. Everybody thought it was okay. That didn't mean it was actually okay. It was actually shit and horrible and a bad thing. Like, you know what I mean? That's kind of the point. I wasn't just trying to bring it up for the sake of it.
There are other cultures outside of America.
I
There
do
are other
not respect
cultures.
any culture who marries 14-year-olds.
Okay.
Mega based. I'm done. Mega based. Mega based by Wick there.
Hey,
Then you can't have
that's your problem.
cultural respect.
Yeah,
You can't
that's-
really
Yeah, I
partake
think
in
he's
this part of
conceding
the
that.
discussion because this
Doesn't
is.
respect it.
Wait. To be fair, there are some cultures that have like child sex slaves, and there's some cultures that have like zoophilia that's like legal. There's some cultures that have it where they respect violence a lot. Where like if a boy beats his father, then that's like a super respectable thing. Just because that's in some cultures doesn't mean that Wick has respected because that's different in his culture.
Okay,
Right?
but when someone from that culture is expressing their opinions and saying, hey, this is what I've experienced, and I think that this is, perfectly fine, I think we need to have a little bit more understanding of, hey, yeah, they just come from a different culture than we do. Let's have a little bit more understanding and compassion for that
We can,
experience
we
rather
can say
than.
the same thing.
just
we can say
because
the
they
same
have.
thing for literally rape. We can say the same thing for slavery. Where can I draw the line with what you just said?
Yeah, this guy cottoned onto a bullshit pretty quick there, so I do appreciate that. Zurio says, do you think that with cultures you should be able to like respect them even if you disagree with their practices or think they're weird? You shouldn't just like wage war or hate them. This woman, wow. Excuse me. When it comes to cultures, generally speaking, I think a lot of cultures have a lot to offer to the world, like unique perspectives or different kinds of religions that speak to different parts of spirituality, artwork, music, even fucking board games and stuff like that. There's plenty of interesting, and writing, obviously, of course, as well, literature. I think that they can be respected and stuff. I don't think you have to respect everything about a culture, though. I don't think you have to. I don't think you have to go to war over not respecting a culture. By the way, you don't need to go to war over it. But you can say that like as a culture we oppose this thing, so we don't accept it in our culture. So say for instance you're against child sex, and that is part of the culture you want to build in your society, then it doesn't really make sense to bring people into your country who come from a culture where child sex is okay. You get me? Like, it's not that like you have to treat them badly or anything exactly, or go to war. It's more that like people should have the freedom to say that we don't like this and this is not a part of our culture, or we don't want it to be a part of our culture, or we just think it's bad. We just think it's morally wrong. Like there's things in Muslim culture that I think is interesting and okay, but the way they treat gays and women and stuff, I think no, that's not compatible with our culture. And you could say that about a million different types of people, Anyway, let's continue.
Anything
Just
in the
because
world.
just because they have a different experience doesn't mean that I'm not allowed to have my opinion and disagree with them and say, no, you are still incorrect. This is still a wrong action, right?
I agree.
And so
I agree with Robert.
if you're gonna tell me that I cannot disagree with what he's saying because it was his culture and this is how he grew up, so how dare me disagree, right? Then therefore you're taking my culture, you're taking how I grew up away from me. So there's no way to do this which helps both parties, and so each person gets their own opinion. We all get to spout our own opinion, and no one on this panel should be lectured because they gave an opinion.
That's not what I'm saying at all. And if you'd let me finish, you would know that I was talking specifically about other people saying that his culture was grooming. Throwing around accusations like that is not okay.
I said the same thing.
Yep, I'm gonna disagree with you. It is absolutely okay to say, hey, what you're doing is wrong and you need to stop because it is harmful. Harm does not change, right, based on your borders, okay? Me crossing into another country doesn't make murder or slavery or grooming or rape any less wrong. Now, we can have compassion for someone who is raised in that. I understand that. I can say, you know what? You were raised this way. I have compassion for you, but I cannot condone it, nor can I support it. You have to call what is wrong, wrong. And there's something we can be very clear. When you get married at 14, if someone is raising you to be married at 14 years old, that is wrong.
Beautiful, beautiful rebuttal from Wick. Beautiful, beautiful response. Zorio, oh yeah, I get what you mean. Cultures are cultures, and if you want to learn about them, you should still also be able to recognize if there's like a social taboo or more going against, I think, though. I'm not sure. I think maybe English is getting a little muddled there, but I think I get what you're saying. You know, we can acknowledge good and bad things about cultures. You know, it's not mutually exclusive. You know, like a culture doesn't have to be all good or all bad. You know, it is what it is at the end of the day.
Yeah, we wouldn't say that a culture whose like tradition is that when you're 15 years old, you go to the next village over, and then you violently rape as many women as you can, and the more that you do, the better of a man you are. We would never say that. Well, like that's just their culture. We gotta respect it if they're gonna celebrate violent rape of women of nearby places. Like then that's just how they are. So if something's wrong, we can still say that it's wrong. We don't have to like respect the way that other people do things because it's different. Like I don't really understand that.
Yeah, Elderdrazi is basically saying my thoughts on this, pretty much.
I don't understand like why once you get so far away from where you're at. Yeah, but like what? Okay, yeah, but like society, it's such an ambiguous and vague word. It's like a distance thing. So like if yeah, sure. So like then.
Yeah, Zorio just said something in the chat about harm. That we're too focused on harm. Did remove it from the chat. That's fair enough. I don't know if you actually want me to comment on that or not. But I know what you mean. I do think that like people do focus too much on harm, but I also just think that like it has to be part of the conversation as well. You can't really remove it, and like people are always thinking about all the different ways in which there can be harm and stuff, and that's just a part of ordering up society and stuff like that. It has to be part of the conversation.
Why is it so much different than like if my neighbor's 80 years old and they grew up in a different time, I'm still going to hold them to the same standards that I'm going to hold everybody else to. Like they grew up with a different culture. I don't have to respect that shit. If I bring over a friend and they're black and they start calling them the N-word, I get to chastise them for that. I don't get to go, well, they're from a different time. I guess it's totally acceptable and okay for them to do this. I have no right to call them out on it. Culture is just a word for like a tradition. It's just how people do things. If somebody does things that's different than me, I think it's wrong. I have every right to call it out. That's not an argument like this says that it's okay or should be respected whatsoever. So you could justify anything by saying that.
But like what I'm trying to say is like I'm not saying that you should like, you know, respect what happened in my life or like respect my culture, but you know, there's like a level of respect you should have for, you know, people's, how do I say, you know, the way they were raised. Like you shouldn't just go ahead and say, oh yeah, that's, you know, you're being groomed. Oh, that's grooming because I was raised a certain way. I was raised to be like a man in a sense. Like we were raised from young ages to like mature faster. That you go ahead and say, oh no, you're being groomed. Oh, you're being, that's disrespectful to the entire population. Like that's disrespectful to my family. Like you know what I mean. Other families that were raised that way and had like success in their life. You know what I
Do you
mean?
know who else? Do you know what other group matures faster? Abused kids. Abused kids mature faster because they're forced to be an adult far before they ever should have to be. So that you see that plenty of times here in America. But yet I stick to the same point that no, you should not have sex with minors like that. That's not something you should have. So just because someone has matured to a greater rate because of how they grew up, it does not mean that like, oh, okay, now all of a sudden it's okay, because you know what, I grew up and they raised me as a man. They raised me as a man at 14 years old. There's no psychological way that you can be a full-grown man at 14 years old. There's no 14-year-old that's going to match intellectually and mental capacity with a 21-year-old. Maybe there's like one or two if you're talking like intellect as in how smart they are. But if you talk about general intellect, there's no 14-year-old that's going to match.
You
Okay.
can acknowledge that while also not throwing around accusations and harmful words.
It's not an accusation. They're defining what's happening.
No, yeah, it's not an accusation when he literally said that. I don't know if grooming's a really bad word to use for this, but I would just say that is a culture of child sex.
No. Harmful words. That's not harm. Like, I want to do harm, and I want to disrespect a culture who marries all 14-year-olds because it is not worthy of my respect. It is not worthy of my respect.
Your opinion.
Hold up.
No, it just isn't.
Your opinion. Your cultural understanding.
Okay.
So
it doesn't matter
I'd
what my
like
cultural
to-
understanding is.
Safa, then Exim.
So basically, you guys are saying that there's a mental disparity or a maturity disparity between, a 14-year-old and an adult, like a 22-year-old or whatever. But then why is it not okay, or why is it okay for like suddenly an age to be, they're 18, but they might not be as mature as other.
Because we need blanket rules for society. There's too many people. Yes, there's variance. Yes, there's some 18-year-olds who are not ready and blah, blah, blah. Maybe there are some people who are a bit younger who are ready and are a bit more psychologically aware. It doesn't really matter, right? None of that really matters because we have to draw a line somewhere, and that is just the way it's going to be. Like, you just don't like that there is being a line drawn. That's the long and short of it.
18-year-olds, so they could be, not mature relatively, but that's still okay.
Because at a certain point,
because they quote unquote matured enough.
Because at a certain point, legally, we have to allow adults, right? We have to allow adults to make choices, even if those choices might harm them. So that is why legally we say 18-year-olds, right, can do things like marry a 50-year-old if they wanted to do so. We recognize that there's problems with that. That's probably a gross thing to do, but we have to give people the ability. It comes down, once again, to consent. And we as a society has decided that 18 is the age where you can make those types of decisions and the government will not stop you. They will allow you that freedom to make those decisions. And we can socially say, ooh, that's kind of gross, but at the same time, it should not be illegal. So when we talk about things like a 14-year-old, we as a society, we as a culture, we legally have said, no, this person is incapable of understanding the contract, the marriage contract, or the relationship or the intimacy that they are engaging with, and that is wrong.
I just don't get why you say an 18-year-old with a 50-year-old is, oh, that's legal, but it's gross, but then you can't say a 20-year-old with a 14-year-old is, that's gross, but it's legal. I mean, it is like literally legal places, but
it
you
should
can't
not
accept
be.
that.
It should not be
Oh
legal
my
places.
God.
If there's any place where a 14...
If you're just going to break down age to only mean the numbers and remove all other context from it, then maybe what you're saying is making sense. But when you're actually thinking about real shit, you just wouldn't think like this. It's God, this girl with the little Joker avatar thing, like she is pissing me off, to be quite frank. She's just using like all these little weaselly tactics to like try and like needle it, like it's like this weird what would you call it? It's like it's quite manipulative, really. It's just adding in like, well, what about this? Well, what about that? Well, what about this? All of them like really fringe things, and then she's like trying to do this virtue signal of like, well, don't disrespect somebody else's culture, and it's like all of this is just to obfuscate from the point that these people want to fuck minors. That's basically it. Asurio says the second guy with the call in his background. With the call. Huh. How most religions or beliefs aren't really what you believe. It's more so the actual acts and rituals you're partaking that define it. Yeah, I would say that that is more or less what it is. You know, people can say what they want about it, but I think religions and beliefs, they're kind of like two things. It is the doctrine, it is like the religious doctrine that they have, but it is also how they present themselves in the world and how they conduct themselves. And you know, they could, like, your religion can say, hey, never kill anybody ever. But then if your religious followers are going around killing everybody that isn't part of their religion, then you start to look at them and go, well, this is just a murderous religion, right? It's just, you have to, there has to be some level of like, you can't just take their word, you have to look at their actions too. Disney's like that as well, like their fans, I mean, anyone who goes back to Disney World, it's like a magic is calling out to them to go there. It's weird. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what you mean by this though. In some ways, that girl's profile pic there is kind of befitting of her. Yeah, no, she is obviously a joker, but yeah, I don't know, yeah, she's been a slippery, tricksy hobbit, isn't she? That's what it feels like.
Why? It
Having
shouldn't be
sex with a
illegal.
20-year-old is legal. That should be done away with.
So if I can real quick, I'm not giving like an argument. It's just from our side, there's like a little bit too much pearl clutching. Like we're just saying it's wrong, it's bad, it's
Pearl
good.
clutching.
Like,
no, excuse me, while I
yeah,
clutch the pearls at 14-year-old child brides.
that's
being
what
a
you're here to
bad
debate,
thing.
bro. That's what you came to debate. Yes, that like of course. So yeah, like they keep saying
pearl
like here,
clutching.
these are arguments. We want to know why, and your answer is because it's bad. Like yeah, they already know you think it's bad.
Have you
like,
not
you have
listened to why I
explain-
explained it's bad? Because they cannot give consent. That is the entire purpose of my argument. I understand that maybe you're dealing
Why
with
can
chat
they
and not listening to the
Why
conversation,
are
and that's
they
fine. But
I
they
hear
cannot
that.
consent.
saying?
Okay.
I heard that. That's part of what I'm saying is that these are just very like surface level. Like they just can't consent. They just can't. There's like a whole lot more context. So like I would say it's the trauma that comes with it. Generally, people who engage in big age gaps are going to have a lot more trouble engaging in society later on in life. They're going to have more trouble in relationships. They're going to have more trouble with trusting people. They're going to have more trouble thinking that like people are after them. They're going to be more paranoid. Children who are at younger ages who have or who engage in relationships with bigger age gaps end up with a lot more problems and then are unable to engage in society. And so generally we build social norms and morals based on what helps us all engage with one another in the most efficient manner. And so that would be something that is inefficient and unhelpful and makes it hard for people to engage.
Yeah, Wick. I feel like Wick got the wrong end of the stick there. I think he thought this lad was trying to take a pop at him. I think the lad was just being blunt, and he said it a bit too. I think he was actually trying to back Wick up, but he ended up kind of like causing a bit of a conflict just from the way that he said it. But yeah, he's trying to expand Wick's point, I think.
Engage. You
I don't think you
the-
really believe that. If none of that stuff were true, you'd still say it's wrong to fuck kids. Even
why?
if they were like totally going to be fine when they grow up and they're going to be socially fine and all that, I think you would still feel like it's bad, wouldn't you?
Why?
I'm sorry. Are you contesting it?
If there's
I am
nothing
contesting that I
bad
would
that
think
will
that
No,
something's
no,
bad
he-
if there's nothing bad. Yeah.
Yeah, he's he's asking you to back up your point. Like, why would he think that if there's no... The reason why we think what we think is predicated on the idea that there is harm and damage done to kids when there's sexual abuse done to them. So if there was no damage done to kids from having sex at a young age, then perhaps this conversation would be different. You know, that's kind of the problem here. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because they are damaged by it. So there you go.
I'm contesting that. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm saying
that's
if all the things that
illogical.
you just listed, I think that you would think that it's bad because it's almost definitionally so that we consider somebody having sex with a child to be bad. Like when we think of things that are bad, there is something very emotional that we feel like inherently. I don't know any
Yeah, but it's about the abuse that can go on. It's about the fact of how vulnerable they are. That's why we feel that way. And we know the damage it's going to do. It's all of those things. It's like they are easily taken advantage of. They might even believe that they're in this consensual relationship, these kids. You know what I mean? But they don't have a clue that they are being used. You know? That's the point.
reason why we're having this panel is because there's something deep inside most people that you don't even have to think about that knows that if somebody wants to fuck a 5-year-old, this is wrong.
Well, that's
Like, we don't-
fairly new in the age of human history. This is a fairly new concept, so generally, no, that's not like most of us have not.
I'm gonna
thought
go
that
on a
way.
limb and
But
say
here today, you think that? Yes.
it's been
Controversial, yet also historically accurate, I would say, from Tom. Now I'm just gonna run to the toilet. I'll let the video play while I run to the toilet. I won't be long.
like most societies historically have thought fucking 5-year-olds is a bad thing. I'm going to go out on a limb to say that, right? I don't have the research, I don't have a source in front of me, right? But yeah, I'm gonna make that bold claim that fucking 5-year-olds is a bad thing and has almost always been considered a bad thing.
Well, they were
You could
talking about
say, oh,
marrying
slavery
13-year-olds
very bad
earlier, and those
thing.
are things that like happen like in the Bible. Like those are things that
Yeah.
are that
Those
were
are things that
normalized
happened
for a
less
long
than
time.
100 years ago. My
Bad
grandma
thing,
was 14
but
when she
100
got
years
married.
ago,
Yeah,
slaves.
child brides were only recently like stigmatized in the age of
This
human
does
history.
sidestep
So
the point I
again,
was
like-
making, just saying.
Sappho, go ahead.
Oh, I was just adding. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead. Make your point, or go ahead and add on whatever you wanted to.
I was just saying that, using a modern lens on a topic that spans throughout history is very myopic. You can say slavery is bad now, but slavery still happens. It happened in the past and we condoned it, and stuff like that. But then like saying, oh, child brides is terrible, but then happened in the past. But then you don't say why it's bad. You're just saying it's bad.
Let me try. Okay, fair enough. Let me try to explain in the simplest terms I can why we have decided culturally, societally, and legally that child brides are a bad thing. Because again, it comes down to the concept of consent, informed consent, the ability to understand what it is you are signing up for when you say yes to a thing. We understand because of advances culturally and scientifically the trauma that comes to children, right, when they engage in certain activities with adults, right, with people who prey upon them. We understand that children do not understand what marriage means, what sexual intimacy entails, and the full risks that they are signing up for when they engage in these activities, right? We have advanced so much that we have decided that, rightfully so in my opinion, that this is the case. And we can look at all the things that Tom here listed, right? All the bad outcomes, right, that happen when these things are true. We can look at all of history to show like how repressed and oppressed child brides had been in the past, and we were saying, hey, that's not something we want. We believe that people are entitled to have a happy, productive life, and that this gets in the way of that. And so when we are grooming and forcing children, right, pressuring and coercing children to sign up to things that they do not understand and cannot consent to, that is unethical and, dare I say, evil.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I feel like you're
I
underestimating.
think you can say that about people in general. It just happens to be that children can't. I think it's evil no matter the age of the person. It just becomes inherently evil because children can't consent and understand the things. So I was just agreeing with Wick, just taking it a step further.
I have to ask, like, you know, at what age do you think that they genuinely can consent in your own
18.
viewpoint of it? Because, well, that's a little high, isn't it?
No, 18.
But what drew you to this conclusion?
Well, we have the scientific studies that I can cite on brain development, and we realize, right, that it isn't fully developed until about 25, but we still allow them to make certain decisions, like such, say, as go to war, right, and things like that. And because we allow them to go to war and we allow them to...
Okay, I'm starting to get a little impatient with this conversation because I just feel like we're going all around the houses. Yeah. Joro said a couple of other things in the chat. I take the phrase age is just a number or metric as kind of so cringe. It's hard to take it seriously. It implies that anyone should be fine regardless of consent to the sex. Yeah, I know what you mean. Age is just a number is a very cringe thing to say. I agree with that. Ironically, she's beyond myopic herself and trying to sneak out or flee from whatever she misspoke or failed to explain. Yeah, definitely. Hate the beard man's mic. Forget his name. Seems quite poppy or noisy. It kind of hurts my ear. Yeah, I will say that's Wick. I think you're talking about the beard, with the big beard. Yeah, his microphone isn't great, but he does have some good points. I will say. But I'm thinking I might start skipping this along a little bit and see if there's any more interesting bits to this discussion, because a lot of what they're talking about now just feels irrelevant. I want to know if they get into... I feel like we've covered all the bases of this conversation so far, and I've given all my points of view that have not been given in this panel, by the way. Some of it is kind of there. Some of them have kind of backed up what I said, but not enough and not as clearly and concisely as I would have liked, personally. Wick's done the best job, easily. There's no even doubt about that. And the maps look pretty shockingly bad in this. You know, they're giving the most weaselly, slippery questions and answers and trying to skirt by. They're literally just trying to find loopholes in logic to formulate their ideas, and it's pretty gross, in all honesty. It's pretty gross.
To risk and ask
and handle this. Like, it's not going to be nearly as traumatic if it's two people of the exact same age.
Worldview in any way.
Okay.
No matter how minor.
Okay, so first off, what you were talking about hitting, cutting, etc., and so on, that is abusive. Abuse does carry trauma. I'm sorry?
That is abuse. Yes, I was agreeing with you.
Okay, so yeah, it's abusive. So abuse carries trauma, and what I'm talking about when I speak of trauma is I'm talking about long-lasting trauma. I'm talking about people who are symptomatic of PTSD. I'm talking about long-lasting trauma that affects them for the majority of or the rest of their life. And that's what I'm speaking of when I'm talking about trauma. Not because I fell off my bike and scraped my knee. The idea that, and I guess I'll ask this before I just assume it. Do you think that a map relationship is inherently more traumatic than a adult to adult relationship for the child. I don't care about what it is for the adult. I don't care. It's for the child. For the child, do you think a MAP relationship is more traumatic than an adult to adult relationship?
Frankly, no. But that also depends. If it's a relationship with like an 8-year-old, yes. If it's a relationship with like a 15, 16-year-old, no. Because there needs to be an understanding that a relationship's a relationship at the end of the day. There's going to be relationships where an adult is groomed into it. For example, you find a woman you like at a bar and you start talking, you bring her
Doesn't
home, you
matter.
have
We
sex,
won't
and then
have
you
any
guys
of
get
that
together.
in this chat.
That brings the same amount of trauma as if you did the same thing to like a 17, 18-year-old.
No, it does not. No, it does not.
It does. Yes, it has. It has been proven
Okay.
time and time again.
Prove it. Then give the study. Prove it.
I don't have
Determine like they have lost their privileges to certain things. We don't strip them of their consent, though.
I think pretty much anything that's not actually like interaction with a child, if we found out that these things were actually helpful to lowering the amount of children that were being abused, I would be in favor of these things. So like I know there's like a meme about like child sex robots, right? If that was actually helpful for maps or for pedophiles to where they would actually be less likely to interact with children, I would be in favor of that, though I don't think that that's actually the case. And I think that like, or even things like what do they call it? Like,
it just seems like they're still in the general malaise of the conversation, and I don't know if any stronger points are actually going to get made at this point. So I'm starting to think that I might I might cut the stream off soon. We'll see.
Then what does harm mean if that doesn't fit? Are we just making up words?
That's why I made it. Well, that's why I made the example.
I think I'm gonna
Let's say,
jump in
for
and add my
example, you're in
2
a
cents for a quick second.
you're in a traumatic relationship, one where you experience abuse. That could lead to you in the future being able to recognize these sorts of traumatic things.
Because you were harmed.
So
Yeah,
still
and
trauma.
that
Harmful
creates a
things.
self-defense.
but
Okay,
pain
we're
isn't
talking all around
necessarily
it.
trauma.
Bad
If I
things
may.
can have good outcomes too,
pain
but it's
isn't
still
necessarily
bad. It's
bad.
still
If
harmful.
I may, the concept here, like being talked about, right? Like, does trauma build character? It's anti-fragility. If you guys know what that is when bad things happen to you, you become stronger for it. There is some truth to that, but there's a much difference. There are levels of trauma. Like, for example, me getting my arm cut off is traumatic in a way that is unique, whereas if I just had a bad day at school or flunked my test at school, that would not have the same level of impact. So when we talk about trauma, trauma, like, it's necessary to growth to a certain extent, but that does not mean, right, that we should seek it out nor condone it when it happens.
Yeah, or like, oh, trauma's good for people to just let people just let people experience like the worst things at a young age. I don't know. It's a very bizarre. Again, she's just trying every little logical loophole she can do. I can gauge what's going on just from the answers, the questions and answers. Fuck, I need to refresh this.
Be gone. I will leave. That is the blanket
It's-
statement.
I
think
didn't. Wait, what?
It's
You
nothing
called-
personal, but
DMs.
I think for everybody
Oh.
it's not personal, but yeah, like
Oh, did some drama go down here?
Capable of, which I clearly am. I'm not saying everybody is. That's never
on.
been the statement.
hold on.
I'm
I'm
saying-
really sorry. Hold on.
One second. Let
Did
him
you
finish.
just
let him-
say?
Just
Wait, did he just say?
Let
he's
him, let him
16?
finish. Let him finish. Let him finish.
No. Hold on. Did he just say he's 16? Is he actually 16?
Wait.
Yes, this person is 16 years old.
I don't think I
What?
want to have this conversation with a 16-year-old on.
Yeah, I'm not
Because-
doing this. I was under the understanding this was all adults.
Yeah, that's
Hold up.
pretty.
I've
fucked
said it
up.
from the start.
I'm sorry.
I never heard him say that he was 16, but I will say that his audio was absolutely god awful, wasn't it? So maybe he did say it and it just didn't come through because of the audio. But I don't remember him saying it at all. And it's weird that he would suddenly say it now.
Wait, you said that?
You said you were an AAM supporter. You didn't say that you were.
No,
an
I did
AAM.
say I was.
That's what I was
No.
under the
I was AAM
impression.
map
Yeah,
before.
that's what I was under the.
That's what I've been saying. That's
Okay.
how I've been
You
saying
see,
it.
this is
That's
a prime
when I
example of what we've been talking about this entire time about how adults being, talked about or talked to by teens saying no. We're saying no. We're adults and we're saying no. We don't want to have this conversation with you.
If you want me to leave, I'll leave.
No,
That's
I'm gonna
blanket
bounce,
statement.
gang. I'll see you guys later. Thanks for inviting me on. I love you all. And have a great day.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time, Wick. Yeah, it seems like if you're actually like under the age of 18, like we're so sorry. We might have to excuse you from the conversation as well.
I thought it was a map advocate, not AAM advocate, not a.
I've said from the start, I'm an AAM. That is what I've said from the beginning.
What does AAM mean?
Adult attracted minor. Yeah,
That is what I've said
if
from the get-go.
Oh my god. Every teenager is attracted to adults. Right? I knew there was a different component to this. I knew it. I'd fucking called it. I fucking knew it. These guys seem really young, and they want to be predators against the adults. That's what they want to do. Oh man, this is such a bizarre angle. Such a bizarre angle to be arguing with. Like, imagine arguing with kids about whether or not it's okay to have sex with adults, and they're like, "No, we want to have sex with adults." It's like, mate, you're an idiot. Of course you want to have sex with adults. We're saying no. We're saying no.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
most-
but
most minors
if
at
he's
some
staying
point
on,
are
I have to
attracted to
leave. I'm not going to
Yeah, I'm
continue this
really sorry,
conversation.
guys.
Yamato.
Can we
Child.
cut this here?
Yamato.
If you
Yeah.
want me gone, I will leave. That is the blanket
It's-
statement.
I did
think
not
it's-
get. I didn't. Wait, what?
It's
You got
nothing
called-
personal, but
DMs.
I think for everybody
Oh.
it's not personal, but yeah, like nobody's comfortable
please.
having this conversation with you in the room.
Yeah, I
I'm
don't.
I thought AAM. I'm so
I say that with a
sorry.
lot
No.
of compassion.
This was. I didn't do my due diligence here. I apologize.
Holy shit. Okay.
Okay, I did not do my due diligence there. Sorry.
It's okay. I get the feeling this lad wasn't. He's saying that he said it from the start, but I don't think that he did. If none of these people knew or picked up on it, I didn't know or pick up on it until this point either. Yeah, he probably should have made sure he asked everyone their age specifically. I guess maybe he just took it for granted he was talking to an adult. Which, is a bit of a no-no, but, it is a mistake that can be made. I feel like it's an understandable mistake,
I apologize to the panelists for that. All right. Yeah, so we might have to go into. Is it okay if they go in the closing conversation? Not closing conversation, closing comments, or
Yeah, go ahead and
think
go
that's a
into
really-
closing.
they're going into closing comments. I don't think we're going to get anything more out of this, so I think I'm going to have to leave the stream there. But thank you to everyone that joined the stream, everyone that joined into the chat as well. I probably will stream more in the new year as time goes on, but I just thought I'd do something cheeky for Christmas. I've got nothing to do. My partner's at work. So, I thought it was about time we did a Christmas stream. But I'm going to enjoy my Christmas period. But on my lonesome, I think it's time to have a little bit of time to myself. So, yeah, I'm going to chill for a bit. But thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll see you all again soon. Have a good new year.